Davin was born disadvantaged compared to all other children because he had only one arm. But the worst misfortune he had to endure his whole life was being born on the same day and month as Cajun, the child blessed by the sword god Kisak with both looks and talent. Davin's mother always complained that it would be so much better if he were Cajun. Every night she would whisper in her son's ear, "Why don't you just die on me, son?" These bitter words were a stark contrast to what his father said when he was still in the womb, seeing Davin as the hope who might surpass Cajun. And so Davin became a shame that crushed all his parents' hopes. Somehow, as soon as Davin could stand and walk, Cajun already knew how to hold a sword. When Davin learned to hold a sword, Cajun was already proficient in using mana and training at Swordmaster Samian's place. That comparison kept going, making Cajun someone Davin both envied and admired. At age 7, Davin was sent to be Cajun's attendant. On the surface, he was known as the supportive right hand by his cousin, but in reality, Davin's parents had sold him for 300,000 luden. In the snowstorm, Davin screamed in pain, his face covered in blood. In front of him, Cajun was playing around as if it were just a game, ha ha ha. "This is the first time I've seen such a pathetic loser like you." Cajun never liked Davin from the start, so he always used him as a punching bag to vent his anger. Davin always had to hold back tears no matter how much pain he felt, while the grown men around just turned a blind eye. Davin's uncle was a very distinguished man, but had long left the family and never returned. Because of that, no one here could control Cajun, who grew up more like a madman than someone worthy of admiration. The natural talent and blessings of the sword god became a poison that destroyed him. He saw everyone as trash. One by one, people had to duel him. Even when they lost, he showed no mercy. The next challenger was Davin. He was very jealous of Cajun's strength and talent, so he didn't hesitate to charge forward, wanting to become stronger. Cajun glared and flat out knocked Davin away. "Don't look at me with that filthy look. I hate you. A pathetic one-armed loser like you dares to look at me like that. You think just trying hard can beat me? If you're so good, then try. A loser like you could try your whole life and still never compare to a single hair on my leg." Davin lay still as Cajun kicked him repeatedly in the face, gritting his teeth and enduring. He wanted to win, even knowing that dream was impossible. The more Davin tried, the more Cajun neglected training, spending his days on girls drinking and even drugs. But Davin still couldn't defeat him. However, things couldn't go on like this forever. Right here in the arena, the two faced each other again. Davin used all the strength he had, including skills he had honed for so long. After one final strike and a thunderous explosion, everyone froze at the scene before them. Davin had defeated the Swordstorm Cajun. Until now, Davin had lost a total of 21 matches, but at 29 years old, he could finally beat him. In all the previous makeshift fights, he always lost to Cajun, and others constantly told him to give up. They mocked Davin, calling him talentless and just wasting his time. But in the end, he won. The crowd roared with shouts of Davin's name. He looked straight into Cajun's eyes. "How long do you think you can keep bragging?" Cajun still wasn't convinced and growled, "You lost to a loser like me." Davin replied bluntly, "If I were you, I definitely wouldn't be like you. I wouldn't waste my time on girls, drinking, and drugs. I'd live a more meaningful life, leaving my mark at the top." Finally, Davin had won, but as he limped away, Cajun couldn't control himself and stabbed him from behind. This sneak attack made Davin realize that until the very last moment, Cajun was just a coward, his mouth bleeding in endless pain. Davin briefly thought, "It hurts so much. I finally defeated Cajun. Yet the legendary Japanese sword, the Kwangthon sword, is only passed down to the Samuel clan descendants. The sword contains the mana of the Samuel clan mana that resists demons. Even if the Holy Gala appears, I have no chance of survival." As soon as Davin opened his eyes, he saw his body tightly bound. "Is this hell?" A tall, muscular man wearing a mask and covered in chains looked puzzled. "You're lucky to be in hell. Who would have expected the miraculous Holy Church Gala to appear in the arena?" The female saint was the one who healed Davin's mortal body with a miracle just like her name. That's why Davin could survive. His entire body was destroyed. Now he can only breathe. The man with bloodshot eyes asked again, "Did you sign a contract with a demon?" Seeing Davin surprised, he squinted. "Why so surprised? Only by signing a contract with a demon can a failure like you defeat Cajun. Your parents already admitted it. Why are you denying it?" Davin recalled his parents' faces full of resentment. "Oh, so that's it. According to that guy, blood and sacrificial items were found at your house. He claimed Davin was a demon who took the lives of 300 innocent children to gain power." Once again, this arrogant man pointed directly at Davin. "Young Master Cajun destroyed you to protect the Samuel family's honor." He personally executed his cousin as well as his childhood friend. Young master must have been very saddened. Davin, feeling bitter, only found it ridiculous. Haha, I understand now. I defeated Kajin but had never touched the family. Yet they chose him over me. And so Davin was branded as the one who stained the family honor, sealing his mana and condemning him to lifelong imprisonment. Davin's tendons and muscles were completely severed, his mana sealed by many layers of chains, and he was thrown into prison. His eyes were blindfolded, no longer seeing any light. The trash named Kajin came before him and mocked him. This is what you deserve, Davin. I have become the Sword King. People out there always praise me as an outstanding swordsman. All thanks to you, you little bastard. After the day Kajin humiliated him, the food delivered here gradually decreased. Davin now looked like a dried-up corpse, starving and thirsty. His internal organs seemed unable to endure it. He began coughing up blood. If I have to give up this life, I still want to go with my head held high. I should have left the arena cold and alone. If I hadn't lost an arm, would my life have been different? Davin collapsed, wondering if he had been a recognized son. If he had been a child blessed by the sword god's grace, would life have been different? The moment a tear fell was also when Davin passed away forever. But in the darkness, a light suddenly shone. As soon as he opened his eyes, the young man felt someone slap his hand hard. An elder of the family is talking to you. Are you listening, Vincent? The pain coming from his right arm couldn't feel more real. Could this be a dream? Yeah, if so, why does it feel so real? The man standing before him was an elder from one of the family's branches. He gasped sharply. Wait, did he just say his name was Vincent, the seventh son of Aiden Kaga? What are these memories playing in my head? Still, this dream wasn't entirely a nightmare. The air was so fresh. There was no disgusting smell of musk like in the underground prison. In the dream, I have my right arm. It's a gift given just before I withered away. Under the identity of Vincent, the man kept speaking, but he still stood dumbfounded, making the elder furious. How much longer are you going to ignore me, Vincent? He immediately felt a powerful mana surge that caused him pain. The young man quickly reacted. The way to stop the attack was to physically isolate himself from the opponent. Although done normally, it generated terrifying power that could push others away. Vincent was startled. When he was Davin, this attack wasn't this strong. The young man froze, only able to say sorry, and offered to help the elder up. The elder brushed his hand away sharply. You're an insolent brat. Just because you belong to the main branch, my son will crush you without mercy. This will be the first time a branch overthrows the main family. From what Vincent heard, he could tell this man looked exactly like his father in his past life. He had always hoped to defeat your eldest uncle. The moment he realized he couldn't achieve that dream, he began to take it out on you, and as a result, Davin became an unfilial son. The elder showed cruelty. When I step out, I will not forget your arrogance and rudeness today. Just wait for the True Sword Conference to happen. Vincent sank into the soft chair, once again breathing in the air. This can't be a dream, right? Shouldn't I have woken up by now? Other memories are starting to come back. Mother died after giving birth to me. Father never cared about me, not even for a minute. All the other kids treated me like an outlet for their anger. Among the 8 children of the prestigious Adenka sword clan, I, Vincent, am the 7th son. I was so cowardly that I would curl up and stay in my room crying after being tormented by the clan's youngest child. An ugly duckling abandoned by others in the main branch of the Adenka clan. A target of the branch families, those who want to surpass the main family. Davin, a powerhouse of the Samian clan, had become the useless Vincent of the Adenka clan. Even though I don't understand a thing, I can tell I've been reincarnated. There's a diary on this bookshelf. Vincent decided to open it and take a look. The diary was full of Vincent's self-criticism. It seemed like his self-esteem had hit rock bottom and he had given up everything. At this moment, Vincent thought maybe God had answered our prayers, kid. Even in my final moments, I was still alive. And you, Vincent, always wanted to give up on life. I don't know if that's really true. Those who want to die disappear, while those who want to live are reborn. Suddenly, a voice echoed inside the room. Are you really going to believe such nonsense? Vincent startled. Who are you? The voice replied. Are you naive or just simply stupid? Vincent sweat, nervously on guard. Is the demon trying to trick me because reincarnation shouldn't happen? The voice spoke again. Why are you thinking so deeply? I am the original owner of that body. My name was Vincent, but since I gave my body to you, I no longer have a name. From now on, please call me Julian. Vincent was stunned. Didn't you die already? How can this happen? Julian smiled brightly and replied, an enlightenment. Vincent remained confused. Enlightenment, is that something the gods grant humans? I've heard that those blessed from birth can sometimes hear words of enlightenment. So are you saying that you're a god? Julian answered excitedly. Yes, but I'm only a minor god. I was originally going to call a spirit god, but you've taken that place instead. If I want to become a true god instead of a minor one, I need to achieve countless accomplishments. We call that a tribulation. If I complete my tribulation, I can become a true god. Vincent hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. I understand your situation, but I have no interest in your accomplishments. If everything you said is true, then I've been reincarnated. I'll be too busy living my own life to have time to listen to the wishes of some ghost. Julian still had that cheerful expression. That's right. I gave up my life, and you wish to have it. As a result, this happened, but my spiritual power is very weak. If my spiritual power completely disappears, that body will also vanish. You don't mind that, do you? Vincent sighed, glancing upwards. What are you threatening me? This body is too strong. It won't break down anytime soon. As soon as Julian finished speaking, he did something that seemed to instantly exhaust Vincent's entire body, and he collapsed flat on the ground. Cease so naive. From now on, I'll show you my true memories. Immediately, the space around Vincent began to change drastically, and the butterfly suddenly transformed into a lightning bolt striking right through him. They were all terrible memories, but alongside them were unimaginable thoughts. This memory showed that the character was not desperate or pretending to be cowardly. He was laying the foundation for revenge. Waking up sweating, Vincent was still shocked. Are these really the thoughts of a 13-year-old child? What kind of world have I been reincarnated into? Only now did Julian reveal his true face. So how is it? Isn't my acting perfect? I must escape the clan's surveillance. The topics I want to learn are considered at the apostle level. Now, do you want to hear me out? This won't harm you in any way. Vincent finally decided to obediently sit down. Julian got straight to the point. All right, do you know the great demon Davin and the heroic King Kaji? Hearing this, Vincent was so startled, he stood up, his face showing deep frustration. Did you just say the great demon Davin and the heroic King Kaji? He tried his best to calm down and listen to Julian. This happened 500 years ago. The one-armed swordsman Davin escaped from Samiel prison because of a deal with demons. He killed thousands to become stronger. Rumor has it he ruthlessly killed 10,000 people. That's why he's recorded in history as a demon. Vincent was once again shocked and stunned. The great demon Davin was from 500 years ago. Does that mean I've come 500 years into the future? It doesn't make sense, but how many people share the same name and from the same Samiel bloodline? Surely I died 500 years ago in that prison, right? The Samiel clan abandoned the one-armed man and chose the sword. When the one-armed swordsman left in loneliness, the sword became the Sword King. But they distorted history and spoke of the great demon and heroic king like that. They made up such terrible stories, those damn Samiel clan members. Vincent thought this maddeningly and angrily slammed his hand on the ground. He never expected them to slander him to that extent. Julian still didn't understand and excitedly continued telling the story. The heroic King Kaji was a close friend who deeply admired the great demon Davin. Isn't that too romantic? Vincent tried to hold back, lowered his head, then yelled to shut up and stop that crazy act. He even knocked all the books off the table. Seeing this, Julian was confused and flustered, not understanding what was going on. Why are you angry? Vincent replied bluntly, because history had been distorted completely. Julian wondered, are you someone from that era? You must be very old then. Don't be mad, old man. Vincent still tried to hold back. Yeah, nothing more frustrating than that sentence. Julian floated while saying, anyway, history is just the story of the winners. Vincent looked up and asked, how can a 13-year-old talk like that? Kids grow up fast these days, not like in your time. Vincent sighed wearily. All right then, keep talking. Julian took the chance to continue. The heroic king swallowed his tears and cooperated with the outstanding hero of that era, who was also a close friend of Lord Solar Sword King, to defeat the great demon Davin. Tran himself was listening to his own story, but still didn't understand who the Solar Sword King was. He had never even heard the name before. Julian was surprised. Oh, you don't know who Aslan is? He is the ancestor of the Adenka clan. Vincent suddenly seemed to remember something, snapping his fingers excitedly. Aslan is that cheeky kid. He became the first head of the Adenka clan. Remembering when he was still Davin, Aslan came before him and showed great admiration. Hello, Lord Davin. I'm Aslan. I really admire you. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Although Aslan was still young, then he was both a friend and a student of his. At that time, besides his insecurity, Davin had very little confidence. even thinking what good could a one-armed man like him possibly have. Aslan still came to visit you in prison several times. Aslan even got very upset and insisted that you never committed any crime. Power will never win over the truth. I will make sure of that. I will definitely restore your honor, no matter how long it takes. From the moment Aslan said that the boy never came again, Julian continued to explain that he was the first head of the Adenka family and left us a lifelong mission. It's related to my achievement, which is overcoming the Samian family who are forced to fight for the truth. Vincent's eyes seemed to freeze after hearing that. Fighting for the truth, is it just a coincidence? Aslan definitely said the boy would reveal the truth, and he is the one who knows my story. It seems certain that it's not a coincidence, and although I don't know everything, I understand this issue clearly. Aslan Farker abandoned the Farker family and created the Adenka family. He wanted to fight for the truth. Adenka is a new family created to restore the honor of Davin Aslan's family. Vincent thinks this might be fate, which is why he was reincarnated into this family. Vincent seems calmer and listens attentively. You're from the Adenka family, and my mission is to complete the assigned tasks right. If I complete that mission, will you really become a god? Julian nodded. That's right. If that happens, you will truly become the master of my body. If I become a god, I can also bless you. This benefits both of us, doesn't it? Vincent now feels very grateful. Thank you, Aslan. I will inherit the mission you left behind. I will surpass the Samuel family. I will climb over the family that betrayed me by becoming part of this family. Immediately, he rushed outside. Julian followed and wondered, Old man, where are you going? Vincent was so bored he didn't want to answer. I told you to stop calling me old man already. Julian still teased. Innocently clueless. Come on, if you're from 500 years ago, then you're definitely old man. Suddenly outside, there was a shout that the battle had begun. Many people were wearing armor and carrying shields. Vincent wondered what kind of martial arts people of this era used. How much martial arts has progressed after 500 years, and how much stronger the Samuel family descendants of Kajin have become. Just thinking about it made Vincent quite excited, but now his body kept sweating and felt very heavy. The young man suddenly fainted without knowing when. Vincent, this lousy kid's body faints way too easily. This body is so bad that without using mana to control it, it can't live normally. While sitting in the training room, Vincent suddenly felt a strange mana flow. He was startled and shouted, Julian, where are you? Still in pajamas, but has to show up. Julian yawned. Why are you suddenly looking for me? Vincent shook his head repeatedly. Julian, why don't you learn swordsmanship? Julian was a bit startled, but still answered, because I'm sick and can't learn it. Don't ask why I was born like this. Vincent kept pushing. You have a holy bone. Why don't you learn swordsmanship then? Julian suddenly threw the pillowcase off. Let me go. What's a holy bone that makes you act like this? Vincent shouted, explaining you can store mana everywhere in your body. More precisely, you can store mana in your bones. Judging by Julian's face, he still didn't understand anything. Vincent looked very tired, not knowing how to explain. Listen carefully, martial artists need to use mana to gain extraordinary power beyond normal people. The red mana is usually stored in the heart. But having a holy bone means that besides the heart, you can store it in your bones too. That means you have an endless mana source. Julian's eyes were still wide open, innocence unmatched. Oh, that's amazing. I have something like that, Vincent still tried to explain. It seems you still don't know how important it is. Kajin, the one you call the brave king, he also has a holy bone. Julian pointed out that he couldn't link the symbol with the heart. Vincent was still clueless about what the symbol meant. He even wore a confused expression that left Julian helpless. What kind of expression is that? Since when do I have to explain these things to this guy? A symbol is a type of image that represents mana. Vincent grimaced and snapped, What are you talking about? Isn't mana supposed to be stored in the heart? What about meditation then? It seemed these two weren't quite on the same wavelength, so the conversation got a bit frustrating. Now Julian looked bewildered. What kind of meditation method are you talking about? Then Vincent explained and asked, What do you mean by meditation method? Apparently the first person capable of storing a huge amount of mana in their heart. Julian's eyes widened. In the old days, we stored mana in symbols and called each one a star, and the number of stars represented each person's strength. It's been a long time since people stopped using their bodies to store mana. In other words, no one does it anymore. Vincent sighed helplessly, unable to believe this harsh truth. He walked to the window and looked up at the sparkling sky. The young man understood that each family member had to gather at least one symbol. Connecting to the symbol and sensing mana was the first condition to achieve a star. It seems storing mana in symbols was to avoid the dangers of having mana stored in the heart. He drew his sword and stared at it. Many had faced danger using that method before, because if it exploded, it would be terrible. But Vincent was doing something different that surprised Julian a lot. Wait, stop, you're gathering mana in your heart. Vincent confirmed that his heart was very healthy. If you want to become stronger, you have to accept the old challenges. When he was dabbing, he also used this method to become stronger. Julian stood behind panicked. Wait, why are you letting the mana scatter everywhere like that? That's the wrong order. Don't you know the formula for the mana veins? Vincent went crazy from the noise. He also wondered if there was another formula out there. Julian clenched his fist and replied, Of course there's a more reasonable mana usage formula. Vincent sighed because he was just trying to recall how it was before. The magical energies would convert and explode in just a few seconds. Julian mournfully said, So I'll just die, huh? Vincent still responded optimistically. In other words, you still have half a life left. Is that okay? After saying that, Vincent flopped onto the bed while Julian got fired up and frustrated. That's not your body, so you can just do whatever you want. Can you please show some respect? All right, I'll respect it, okay. But why are you doing this to this body? After hearing the question, Julian looked confused again. Vincent continued, The appearance of this body isn't bad. The heart is very healthy. If you peacefully become part of the Samuel family, you'll succeed somehow. The symbol is important for gathering mana. But it also needs mana itself. Because of the difficulty, no one has seen it for the past 3 years. At this point, Vincent Adenka's body would fail before reaching adulthood. It was pitch black outside. Many stars sparkled in the sky as Vincent focused all his strength on meditating. For him, meditation could help avoid many things, but everything has its limits. Maybe only 15 remain. The time needed to become Sword King and for Darwin to reappear is about the same time Darwin was imprisoned, gradually starved to death. Just thinking about it made Vincent tear up. Truly a heartbreaking life. Those years were so terrifying that he didn't want to look back at Darwin. He had to endure for a long time. Just then someone knocked loudly. What are you doing in there, young master? Answer me. Vincent looked confused, not knowing who it was. The person didn't wait any longer and bluntly opened the door and barged in. Seeing the messy scene, the person was shocked. Oh my God, what happened here, young master? What kind of chaos did you cause in the room? Only then did Vincent slowly stand up and ask a question that was completely clueless. Are you my servant? Why are you asking such strange questions? Of course, who else could I be, young master? Following the memories, Vincent confirmed this person's name is Wilson, the one Julian will personally eliminate in 3 years. Vincent decided not to analyze or overthink it anymore. If you're a servant, then you better be quick to do the chores at the right time. Bring me a clean outfit here, then know your place and clean the room. Wilson was confused and stunned. What's going on? Why does he look stronger than usual today? Is this still the weak Vincent I know? Wilson grimaced and asked the young master with irritation. What did you do to mess up the whole room like this? Did you just do some crazy experiment? Vincent replied calmly. No, I didn't. Before he finished, Wilson's face swelled up as he snapped. You're no different from a kid, yet you dare say no. You hide in your room reading books all day until you go crazy. What good has that done you? You've definitely been learning black magic, haven't you? I'm going to report this to the higher-ups. Vincent decided to teach this servant a lesson. How great. It's rare to see a servant talk like that to his master. You keep trying to do things your master doesn't want. So you didn't intend to obey from the start, right? These sudden, blunt words left Wilson stunned and stammering. Vincent continued, giving a warning. I might make you work harder than usual, but don't you see that's your duty? Wilson still held a defiant attitude, yelling in Vincent's face. I said I won't do things I don't want to do. What do you think I'm here for? Vincent glared straight at him. Exactly, you're just a servant, am I right? After saying that, his attitude immediately shifted as he snatched the shirt from Wilson's hand. If you don't want to do it, then don't bother. I'll go get my own clothes. Wilson sweated nervously. Where are you going, young master? Vincent answered calmly. I'm going to Lord Chamberlain's place to get clothes. He would say he had to go because Wilson didn't want to do the job with a reluctant attitude. Wilson had no choice but to obey. I'll go do it right away. Who said no? I'll clean the room too, so just leave it there. Vincent used to be a coward. Even a servant could be so arrogant. They must have a purpose for doing this. Julian, standing nearby, nodded. That's right. I think so too. Vincent felt they were just people who didn't know their place. They like to provoke others. We have to show them what the seventh head of the Adenka family is like. Julian informed Vincent, Wilson is part of the group that massacred hundreds. What should we do? Hearing this made Vincent more intrigued. Is that so? Listen carefully. A killer always carries a different kind of energy, but I can't sense that energy from him. He's just a worthless guy. His eyes still look so innocent. I also think he's just a coward. Julian was surprised to hear that. Weren't you once that kind of person too? If not, how could you understand so well? Vincent looked back with sharp eyes. Because I've lived a previous life. Julian suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Not understanding what Vincent was up to, Julian began to fear. Could it be? I've summoned something even worse than the Demon King. With a face showing utter annoyance, Wilson carried in the freshly washed outfit. Sir, I've finished washing your clothes from yesterday. Do you like how I cleaned your room? Vincent even put on a satisfied expression. The room really is spotless. The young man sat cross-legged on the chair, gratefully thanking the kid for working hard. Wilson still grumbled. Please don't turn the room into a battlefield next time. Vincent replied sincerely. All right, I won't do that anymore. But inside, he felt satisfied seeing Wilson more obedient. Honestly, what could useless Vincent really do? Even acting so proud like that? You keep on with the trivial stuff. Wilson, bring me a wooden sword about 1 meter long like this. It would be great if it weighs around 500 grams and should be made from blackwood. There must be a whole pile of that in the warehouse, right? Wilson never changes his ways. What if I refuse? Vincent continued teaching him a lesson. Young man, get the hell up. If you don't do it, I'll go get it myself. So how should I answer the gatekeeper when he asks why I have to go get it myself? Oh, right. Wilson, do you know the guards at the warehouse are masters, and they are very loyal to the descendants of this family? Wilson was caught off guard. Wait, why are you acting like this again, sir? Seriously, wait a moment. The moment Wilson touched Vincent, he reflexively threw him a painful wrestling move, damn it. Sorry, I have quite a few bad memories of being hit from behind. Wilson looked confused because he had never heard of that happening before. Vincent turned his head and emphasized that makes it even better. From now on, remember that in your head. Actually, the young man was also trying to endure wrestling Wilson, which took a lot of strength and hurt all over. It really hurts. Feeling anger right behind him, Vincent glanced back and teased. So what do you want to say to me? Too scared, so Wilson suddenly obeys like a puppy. No, sir. What did you say? 1 meter blackwood, right? Vincent wasn't done yet. Hey, hello? Didn't you say you didn't want to go get it? Wilson suddenly exploded like a madman and immediately stormed out the door. I never said I didn't want to do it. Out of habit, he slammed the door loudly to show his attitude, but was afraid Vincent would play tricks, so he cracked the door open to explain the door slammed shut because of the wind. I didn't mean to. As he left, Wilson was already planning his revenge. I'm not allowed to lose to him again. I'll show him why I am Wilson. With a smug and contemptuous look, Wilson brought back what Vincent asked for and showed his attitude. He was proud of his arrogant attitude and thought to himself, so feeling pretty miserable, huh? You think I'll give it to you that easily? Vincent closed the book and looked at him with one eye. Wilson, you know, among all the people I know, there's one who doesn't have a right hand. Because he doesn't have a right hand, his life has been pretty tough. In fact, he encountered a really terrible thing at the end of his life. As if realizing something, Wilson suddenly handed the sword to Vincent and bowed. Here's your wooden sword, sir. While bowing, he felt resentful. Damn shameful. Wilson gritted his teeth. I've finished the task you gave me. I'm taking my leave now. The door slammed with bitterness as Wilson left. Vincent pushed everything aside and focused on the sword. Good now, I just need some proper exercise. Right now, he's practicing alone with 2 wooden dummies. He knows this holy bone is very weak, but didn't expect to be exhausted after just a few swings of the wooden sword like this. Looks like there's still a long way to go. However, Vincent felt this sensation was wonderful. Seems like I was born to be a martial artist. Just then, some weird guy appeared. Because the mana is too weak, I didn't think anyone was using straw. Facing Vincent's question, he introduced himself. My name is Revan Adenka, and added, Aren't you the useless Vincent? In a silent moment, Julian from another dimension reminded Vincent Revan Adenka is just a backup descendant. Vincent was quite surprised to suddenly hear Julian's voice. He continued, He's just one of the candidates predicted to win this True Sword Conference. You've met his father before, right? Only then could Vincent confirm that the man he met was the father of this kid. Julian didn't forget to warn, be careful. He's a seed from the backup descendants, the best skilled among the 13-year-olds in the Adenka family. Revan Adenka sneered and said, I guess if I win this True Sword Conference, I'll have to fight you. That's why I came to find you. Hearing the name True Sword Conference, Vincent suddenly jolted. It's a real sword tournament gathering children from martial clans in various branches of the Adenka family. Since there's no age limit, people usually participate in the True Sword Conference at age 14. The champion of the True Sword Conference is believed to have the chance to fight the official heir of the Adenka family at the same age. The official heir must fight the True Sword Conference champion. Vincent is considered the weakest among the official heirs. Already the name Ravana Adenka was going crazy. You won't run away from me because you're too scared. This True Sword Conference won't end with wooden swords. Vincent replied bluntly, how can a martial artist be afraid of swords? Hearing this, Ravana Adenka laughed wildly again. Ha ha ha, I guess you've been good at talking ever since you became an official heir. Vincent crossed his arms, determined to talk back. You talk pretty well too. Even provocations need limits and rank. Vincent said this because he was very annoyed that he dared to mock a family member who was training. He was way too rude. Even one-armed Davin had to respect both training and sparring. Even Cajun respected him. Vincent was determined to teach a lesson by chopping down someone else's scarecrow. You're a disgrace to all martial artists. You should be ashamed of yourself. I guess your father, also a backup heir, taught you how to behave like that. Ravana Adenka got furious and almost jumped up. Bastard, you dare insult my father. I've decided I won't forgive you ever since you insulted my father. Julian reminded that Ravana Adenka was at level 2 and his attribute had reached steel level. Vincent had to be careful because Juji was also stronger than Vincent. At this moment, Vincent thought, I know I'll lose if I fight him right now. But clearly he reeks of the low class of someone raised as a backup heir. He's using mana even though I haven't been able to control mine yet. His father doesn't even act like an adult, and his son doesn't know the manners of a martial artist. Martial artist thinking isn't the same as it was 500 years ago anymore. I have to make sure he learns that in my pimp's team. Vincent pointed his sword straight at Revan and said, someone like you needs to be taught by the eldest in the clan. Revan Adenka was surprised that Vincent, whom he considered a coward, dared to point a sword at his face. He thought silently. From the moment he pointed the sword at my face, I knew he had no chance of winning. But why is the atmosphere so tense? Is he really going to slice me anytime soon? After a few minutes of intimidation, Vincent sheathed his sword and said, if you're scared just because of a few wooden swords, then what? I feel like I can fight you at the True Sword Conference. At the True Sword Conference, things don't just end with a few wooden swords. You understand? Ravana Adenka gritted his teeth, unable to control his anger. He immediately charged forward, deciding to take Vincent down on the spot. Seeing this, Julian got scared and quickly hid behind Vincent, then said, what are you waiting for? Dodge quickly, Vincent. Vincent calmly replied, don't worry, Julian. He can't hurt me. At the same time, a man appeared holding Revan back and said, young master, stop now. You're not allowed to fight young Master Vincent here. Revan angrily shouted, what? Let me go. Seeing the situation calm down, Julian sighed in relief and said, thank God. Vincent stood aside proudly. See, I told you. The blond man continued, if you hurt young Master Vincent here, he'll have an excuse to avoid this fight. Young Master has to fight you at the True Sword Conference, so please control yourself. Revan reluctantly agreed. Then we'll meet again at the True Sword Conference, coward. Then he returned to his room and Julian kept complaining. Seriously, why did you provoke Revan earlier? If his bodyguards hadn't stopped you, you might have gotten into trouble. Vincent arrogantly replied, all I did was teach that clueless brat a lesson. Julian wondered and asked, you went crazy. How did you end up like this? I had to plan to summon the Spirit King after all. Vincent looked very calm again. Yeah, sorry. That's why I'm learning what's going on in this era from you. Vincent looked at a picture of himself as a child and silently said, this is a portrait. Julian angrily snatched the photo and said, hey, focus. Don't get distracted by all that nonsense anymore. Have you finished studying the theory of illusions yet? Focus on magic and the 5-element attributes. Vincent wondered about attributes, and Julian explained that attributes are what people create power from blessings. A self-made blessing. Hearing this, Vincent panicked and said, but you can create your own blessings. That's disrespecting the gods. You will be punished. Julian pouted and said, what are you talking about? You don't respect the gods either. You should be grateful no one has died from divine punishment yet. Vincent pressed further. Ribbon has attributes too, right? So what exactly is the blessing of the straw man? Julian explained that your king's blessings include many things. These attributes help the recipient gain more power. The more special blessings you have, the more chances you get to open stronger paths like branches on a tree. The strawman's blessing is a mid-level blessing with power in both defense and attack. Vincent thought for a moment and responded that this seems like a pretty interesting new thing. Julian agreed, saying, yes, you'll become a lot stronger. At that moment, Vincent thought to himself that just as Julian said, that straw figure was cut cleanly in half right at the neck. Reven has shown me incredible achievements compared to people in my time. Is that the power of attributes? To fight someone like that, I need to get used to those skills. Early the next morning, Vincent went back to the training ground. He kept diligently practicing with the wooden sword. The guards witnessing this were surprised and gathered, saying, wait, is that really the young master? Is he swinging the sword with his left hand? He'll get bored soon, everyone knows that. He started swinging wildly. After 2 or 3 swings, someone came over and interrupted, telling them not to speak harshly to him like that. Seeing Merlin, the group became scared, bowing and saying, Deputy Commander Merlin. Merlin calmly said, what's so funny about the young master of Adenka training in martial arts? Hearing this, the group quickly apologized, saying, we're sorry, sir. Then they immediately left. Merlin glanced at Vincent's training side and thought to himself, that's exactly what I wanted to say. But look at him, people always call him the shame of Adenka. Someone swinging a sword unconsciously without any attributes or mana. He's always looked down upon by others. Julian shyly said they're gossiping about that person. Shouldn't we train in the forest instead? Vincent replied, do you have the strength and time to go there? Vincent recalled the past and said he's used to being looked down on by others. Since no one expected me Davin to defeat Sword Dance, but I did it. I've turned defeat into victory with this body before. I have to try even harder. Suddenly Merlin approached, handed Vincent a cup of water, and said, here's some spiritual recovery medicine, sir. Training will be easier with this. Vincent took the bottle and asked, are you Merlin? Merlin quickly explained, I am the deputy leader of the White Sword Unit. Vincent pressed further, are you mocking me? Merlin honestly replied, I have. But your eyes look like you're searching for something. Anyone who mocks a martial artist like you should be despicable. As soon as he finished speaking, Vincent said, Merlin, I will remember that name. Sorry, you should be patrolling now. You can leave. Merlin quickly saluted and said, then I will take my leave. Merlin saw Vincent's determined look and felt something strange. Something had changed in the young master. He wished him luck. Vincent trained tirelessly day and night from morning to evening, day after day alone with his wooden sword. He trained like that until he was exhausted before sitting down to drink water. At night, Vincent diligently took notes, recalling moments from his training. Vincent told himself to balance on his right foot and add hip rotation force. I can feel the mana in my chest. I'm starting to sense it now. Davin the way to defeat Kajin. Vincent recalls the power he once felt when fighting Kajin, silently telling himself that the sword technique must follow the precise points of the starlight to fully unleash its power. Immediately, he continued to practice each decisive swift strike along the line of the fist. Seeing the results before him, Vincent couldn't help but quietly rejoice. I've succeeded. I've mastered the sword technique. In another corner there, Wilson angrily frowned and muttered, how many days has it been, damn it? He's not a rooster, so why is he eating at 5 a.m.? His training only makes me work harder. Thinking of this, Wilson had an idea. Maybe I should insult him a bit. Then he brought the food and said, young master, breakfast is here. Wilson slowly opened the lid, making Vincent shocked to see the plate was already partly empty. Looking at Wilson's mouth smeared with food, Vincent angrily said, if you want to sneak a bite, don't be so obvious about it. Wilson pretended to be clueless and replied, what did you say, sir? Vincent continued, if you have any conscience, at least wipe your mouth. I could easily overlook it now, but I hope you don't go beyond what's allowed. Wilson quickly wiped his mouth. You know, I was once a criminal, right? I may look like this, but I've dealt with quite a few people. Hearing that, Vincent laughed out loud. You scared me. Wilson was pleased, but before he could finish speaking, Vincent used mana to warn him. Controlling others by threats is easy, but you can't scare me. That's why I don't drown you with force. Wilson was startled and quickly asked, young master, since when do you have mana? Vincent calmly replied, the important thing is I'm using mana, right? Wilson nodded. Yes, sir. Vincent continued, stop pretending in front of me and stand next to me. Soon you won't have to be embarrassed for serving me, Vincent, anymore. When the time is right, you must decide whether to resist or serve me with loyalty. Wilson went outside, stood by the door, looked in and asked, what are you talking about, sir? Even if you oppress me like that, I would never obey. He immediately closed the door, pondered for a moment, then began to feel confused. Why suddenly is this formerly lame young master so cool? In another scene, Merlin leisurely walked through the sword training area. The young man thought to himself, it seems like young Master Vincent came early today. Suddenly, Merlin was startled by something. He looked at the straw dummy and exclaimed, "What? This straw man was cut in half with a narrow sword line. Impossible. From what I saw, young Master Vincent only used a wooden sword. But from this angle, is it really possible to improve this much? Young Master Vincent, what sword technique are you learning?" At this time, Vincent was leisurely enjoying breakfast. After eating, Vincent changed clothes. Wilson agreed to sit on the floor, folding each set of clothes for Vincent. Julian said with amusement, "Isn't that bastard Vincent becoming very obedient? He's just a bit stubborn. Just leave him be, and he'll fall in line." Suddenly, Vincent rolled up his sleeve and asked Wilson about his clothes. "Is it made from Levidice fabric?" Wilson was confused and asked, "What kind of fabric is that?" Vincent explained further, "Using this type is very cost-effective, but it stains easily. This type isn't good enough for a noble like me. As for the food, compared to our family's budget, those dishes are very poor quality." Julian asked curiously, "What do you mean?" Vincent replied, "Someone has stolen the money. They definitely embezzled it." Julian was surprised and asked, "What?" Wilson stammered, "Levitin embezzled." Seeing Wilson's trembling, fearful attitude, they felt helpless. Vincent said, "It's not Wilson, he wouldn't dare do that. It must be someone above him." In another development, Revan was diligently training. Revan's muscular body made the sisters envious. Revan recalled Vincent once said, "Why are you so afraid?" Thinking of this, Revan couldn't help but feel angry. He shouted loudly, "Who's afraid?" Then Revan swung the wooden sword in a wild slash. Suddenly there was a knock outside asking, "Is Revan there? Looks like you're training very hard." Hearing the sound, Revan turned around and called out to Father. Revan's father said fiercely, "Revan, you don't have much time left until the sword festival. We must escape a life of poverty and sorrow. If you want to help our branch chi, you have to defeat Vincent." Hearing this, Revan replied, "I know." Revan's father gripped his arm tightly and shouted, You must become one of the branch chi members who can overthrow the main. Chi, do you understand?" Faced with this, Revan could only nod and say, "Yes, sir." Revan thought to himself that the festival was coming soon, so Father was more irritable than usual. Day after day, Father's obsession was getting worse. "Vincent, if only I could defeat that bastard. Then Father and my clan could return to the prosperous days they once had." Meanwhile, Julian said excitedly, "Then it's finally over now. The information about those participating in the sword festival." Vincent said, "What the hell is this? Not only their personal information, but also their usual techniques and habits are here." Julian smugly said, "Isn't this awesome?" Vincent turned and replied, "You're terrifying. You're giving me goosebumps." Julian replied excitedly, "I'll take that as a compliment." Vincent asked curiously, "Your plan is to create a spectacular debut at the sword festival by borrowing the power of the Spirit King, right?" Julian responded, "Exactly. And this magic stone here is the mana jewel reserved for the champion. If you absorb this jewel, your body and mana will instantly become stronger. It's as miraculous as the name suggests." Vincent silently admired from the information he gathered, and his expression showed how much he understood how much the kid wanted him to win. "I can clearly see how badly that kid wants me to win. It would be humiliating for a fighter to lose when he already has all the information he needs." Vincent said, "Even if I'm not the Spirit King like you, I will win this tournament to get what I need." Then Vincent immediately rang the bell calling Wilson. Immediately Wilson came out panting, boldly opened the door and asked, "Yes, young master, what is it?" Vincent went straight to the point. "There is something I need you to do for me, Wilson." Elsewhere in a room, a voice was heard. "I'm Wilson. May I come in?" Wilson slowly opened the door and asked, "Are you well, Grand Steward Vuza Riza?" Seeing Wilson appear, she coldly asked, "What do you want?" Seeing Riza's intimidating demeanor, Wilson trembled and thought, "That's really a level 7 martial artist. She's so scary." Wilson answered, "Young Master Vincent has something to say to send to the head of the family." Riza calmly replied, "Is that so? Looks like he doesn't even dare to come see the head of the family himself anymore." Wilson continued, "He wants the head of the family to attend the sword festival. He said he will prove his worth as a member of the main chi." As Adenka finished speaking, Rialsa said, "The head of the family never attends the sword festival. He neither has the time nor the reason to do so." Before Wilson could finish, he took out a paper and placed it on the table saying, "This is the price for embezzlement. Your job is to make the impossible possible. Hearing this, Riza's tone deepened as she asked, "What did you just say?" Wilson quickly replied, "Ah, no, I was just relaying what the young master told me." Riza angrily said, "Enough, leave now." As soon as she finished, Wilson immediately ran off. At that moment, Riza thought silently, he could come here himself, but even if he did, he wouldn't scare me any more than this. He deliberately sent Wilson here to show me that he has power. At last, he's gotten a lot smarter. Elsewhere, a man was tirelessly training. Ruisa slowly stepped inside, sensing this. The old man called out loudly, "Ruisa." Hearing the call, Ruisa answered respectfully, Young Master Vincent wants to invite you to attend the sword festival." As soon as she finished, the man said, "Looks like you've been worrying too much, Risa. Stop doing pointless things like this." Before finishing his sentence, Risa quickly explained that he said he would prove his own worth as a member of the Adenka branch. Hearing this, the old man spoke solemnly. "Prove your worth, Ruisa. Do you think Vincent has the qualification to speak about his own value within the clan?" Ruisa replied, "Of course not. That's why he promised this time he would prove his worth." Ruisa bowed respectfully and said, "Please attend Master of the House. I will be the one to prove it for you." As soon as she finished, the Master of Adenka responded, "Do you know what that means?" Ruisa answered, "Yes, sir. If young Master Vincent cannot prove himself, I will sacrifice my life." The Master of Adenka expressed, "I don't understand why you have to do something like this." Ruisa replied, "It's because young Master Vincent struck a weak point in me." The Master of Adenka pressed, "Is it because you embezzled the budget? Surely you did this intentionally for Vincent's benefit. You intended to use that money for Vincent's future." Ruisa looked ashamed and said, "It's my fault." The Master of Adenka continued, "I have no reason to interfere. That's your business. I don't want to get involved much, but no matter what method that brat uses to express his intentions to me, as long as it doesn't diminish any bit of his dignity. Is that brat really Saravana's son?" Then the Master of Adenka stood up. "All right, you win. I will attend the True Sword Conference." Soon the day of the True Sword Grand Tournament arrived, and the handsome young men had gathered here. Raven, bearing a heavy responsibility, stepped into the arena, silently saying, "Prepare yourself, Vincent. Today I will definitely defeat you." Raven glanced up at the stands and saw a figure that caught his attention. He wondered and asked, "Who is that?" "No way, Master Khan." Seeing Khan, Revan smugly thought he definitely came to see me, the rising star among the descendant substitutes competing. "This is my chance. I'll beat you in style right in front of the master." At that moment, the referee's voice announced, "The True Sword Grand Tournament is now starting." As the signal ended, Revan gleefully said, "So annoying, just wither away already." "All right then." Faced with this, Revan's opponent was unfazed, raised his sword high and said, "You dare be arrogant." Suddenly, the sword shattered into many pieces, startling Revan, who exclaimed, "What did you just do? Why do you think that move would work against my steel attribute?" Then Raven kicked his opponent hard with one foot. Witnessing the fight, Revan's father shouted excitedly, "That's right. That's how it's done, Revan." Everyone present sighed. No wonder he's called the rising star among the branch descendants. He's still young, but already reached 2-star level. That defensive attribute is really impressive. A branch descendant might actually win this tournament for the first time in history. Vincent stood aside silently thinking, by the standards of 500 years ago, they are all geniuses. Very promising geniuses, but they barely have any deep understanding of swordsmanship. Their strength mainly comes from their own attributes. From their movements, you can't see any combat experience, as if they were puppets dancing on paper. That explains why he could use his attribute and attack so dominantly. On his opening victory, Revan arrogantly bowed to the crowd's cheers. He thought to himself, "I admit you for not running away, Vincent. Hurry up and climb up. I'll be waiting for you here." Master Khan was still intently watching the contest. The atmosphere in the arena grew increasingly heated, as one by one Revan easily defeated his opponents. The announcer's voice rang out, "Stop, the battle is over. You win, Revan Adenka." Revan laughed smugly. "It's over. I, Revan Adenka, have defeated all my opponents. Now, as the rules set by all the elders require, I will fight my close friend Vincent Adenka in the final battle of the True Sword Grand Tournament. I will fight the direct descendant of the family." As soon as he finished, Vincent proudly accepted, "I accept your challenge." Then Vincent stepped onto the arena, the two of them facing each other. The man standing in the middle introduced himself as Jason, the referee for this Sword Guild event. Both of them prepared. Suddenly, Vincent interrupted, "Wait, I have one condition." Vincent called out loudly to Wilson, and immediately Wilson handed him the wooden sword. Vincent confidently said, I will only use this wooden sword and fight with my left hand against my distant relative. I will also allow him 3 attacks. Hearing this, Revan's father was completely confused. What is he talking about? The people sitting nearby were shocked and exclaimed, I've heard some negative rumors about him. Has he gone mad? I don't know. Vincent continued, until the first 3 attacks are finished, I will not move a single step from where I currently stand. As soon as Vincent finished speaking, Revan angrily shouted, What the hell are you doing, Vincent? How long do you plan to hold the flag? Everyone was whispering, This is ridiculous. Isn't young Master Vincent supposed to know nothing about martial arts? So even if he's a direct descendant, so what? How can he be so arrogant? Revan's father shouted angrily, Young Master Vincent is just doing this to make excuses for when he loses. Right after the Khan family head calmly responded, I allow it. Hearing this, Revan's father reluctantly nodded and said, Yes, family head. The Khan family head said, Vincent, you better prove your words with your actions. Vincent confidently replied, I will, family head. After the agreement was made, Jason announced, If so, the battle with the direct descendant will begin. Both sides be ready. Revan angrily said, Charge Vincent. Vincent smiled and replied, Didn't you hear what I said? I told you I would take the first 3 attacks without moving. Jason raised the flag and loudly said, Begin. As soon as he finished, Revan immediately said, Then die in that stance. Then he instantly attacked. Vincent calmly watched him and silently counted the first attack. Rewinding a bit, Vincent had told Julianne that it was highly likely to be a short stab. Just as predicted, Vincent quickly dodged to the side. He said, Let's see how long you can stay arrogant when the blade is at your throat. Revan smugly thought, Got him. Vincent thought quietly, Most of these are just feints. The real attack will be the second stab. At this point, Revan arrogantly said, Now I've got you. Vincent calmly thought to himself that Revan's movements were too obvious. He didn't even need Julian's information to tell, because Revan's trait lets him avoid injury, so he doesn't even pay attention to the basics. Vincent frowned and said, From the start, good swords aren't meant for stabbing. With just a flick of his hand, Vincent blocked Revan's attack. This made Revan exclaim, Did he just change the sword's direction? Impossible. To see where his sword is going, he must be much stronger. Vincent smirked, I already allowed you 2 attacks first. As soon as he finished, Revan, embarrassed and angry, said, Don't get cocky just because you learned some cheap tricks. Then Revan frantically launched the 3rd attack, but unfortunately for him, Vincent easily caught his hand and kicked him, making Revan lose his balance. Immediately after, Revan fell painfully to the ground. Revan lay flat on the ground screaming. Vincent coldly said, That was the 3rd attack. Revan asked confused, What are you doing? Vincent silently promised himself and Julian, I will keep my promise to you and to your father. You hold the wooden sword, now it's my turn to attack. Witnessing this, everyone was left speechless in amazement. Even the referee, Jason, was no exception. The Khan family head was restless, frowning as he observed the situation. Revan's father shouted angrily, What are you doing, Revan? Get up! How can you struggle against a guy who doesn't even know how to use mana? Even Revan was confused, silently wondering what was going on. Julian said in surprise, What's going on? I didn't see clearly, Vincent. Vincent replied, That's basic fighting technique. Standing still with your hands is also an effective way to defend. That way you can observe your opponent. There are many ways to suppress your opponent without using weapons. After a moment of thought, Revan said, Now, I understand gaining the advantage in such a short time must be thanks to the little god's help. Don't you feel too ashamed? As soon as he finished, Julian angrily said, The little god went a bit too far. Vincent said, If that makes you feel better, then keep thinking that way, but your thoughts will end here. Revan flew into a rage and said, Shut up, your cheating tricks will end here too. In this situation, Julian shouted in panic, It's very dangerous. Dodge this attack to the left. Vincent calmly replied, I know. Then Vincent quickly dodged to the side and used his sword to immediately block the attack. Vincent thought to himself, Damn it, my chance has come. Immediately, Vincent swung the wooden sword at Revan's neck, causing Revan to be confused and exclaim, What is that? It doesn't hurt at all. Revan's father heard this and went crazy. Of course, a training sword could never break through such a steel-like defense. Vincent thought to himself, with a body that hasn't been trained much, I can't use any strong skills yet, but if he's confident enough, he'll attack with that move again. Revan laughed proudly. Let me show you the gap between us can't be covered by your limited talent. At this moment, Vincent silently planned to use the power from that attack move when Revan was about to strike again at Vincent. He immediately unleashed a critical move. Instantly, Revan was knocked back. Vincent said to referee Jason, "You better find a way to prevent a disaster from happening." This statement left Jason wide-eyed in shock. At this moment, Vincent knew deep down that he only had one chance. Then Vincent immediately rushed forward to attack. He thought to himself, if he used this skill one more time, his body would shatter. He had to finish it while the opponent was still suspended in the air after that move. Revan couldn't help but be astonished at Vincent's attack. Revan angrily shouted, "Damn it." Looking at Revan's gesture, Vincent thought he could see the sparks Revan left behind and the sparks he created forming a sword path connecting the two. "Look closely, Julian. This is the move I have been training." After saying that, Vincent performed a strange strike for Julian to witness. Instantly, Vincent's wooden sword cut off Revan's right arm. Witnessing this, Revan's father panicked and stared wide-eyed at Lord Khan, surprised at Vincent's strength. At this moment, Vincent thought to quickly take advantage of the opponent's imbalance, unleash his ultimate move, and use it to control everything, including the opponent's movements. This is called swordsmanship. At this moment, Revan kept screaming, "My arm, my arm." Referee Jason couldn't believe his eyes. No way. Vincent then turned to the referee and said, "What are you doing? Don't I have to cut off his leg too to win the championship?" As soon as he finished speaking, Jason immediately raised the flag and declared, "The champion belongs to Vincent." Revan's father hurriedly ran over, shouting for Revan to stop the bleeding quickly. The referee looked worried. "Just medicine won't be enough." Call the medic here," Vincent said proudly. "I told you to find a way to stop it." Hearing this, Jason bowed his head and replied, "Sorry, it's my fault." Julian looked very amused. "How are you so calm? Your body has reached its limit. You should rest early." Vincent coldly replied, "I know, but it's not time to rest yet." Vincent said, "I have kept my promise, father." At this moment, Lord Khan calmly sat in the stands looking at Vincent, thinking, "You said you would directly prove your strength to the Adenka family." After a moment of contemplation, Lord Khan responded, "I understand the champion of the True Sword tournament belongs to Vincent." Vincent stood below and looked up at his father. Then Lord Khan told everyone to go inside. The award ceremony will begin. Night had fallen, covering the castle. Everyone is present here. Master Khan took out a sparkling item and placed it on the table. He said that the person who wins will receive this magical stone. Vincent stepped forward and to receive his reward with respect. Suddenly, Revan's father burst in panting, saying, "This makes no sense at all. There must be some trick. He must have borrowed the power of some minor god." The healer behind continued saying Master Khan had a small problem arise. Master Khan asked what the problem was. The healer explained that it seemed Revan's arm could no longer be healed. Revan lay on the bed. His severed arm was being treated diligently by the healers, but he was still in intense pain. Charlie looked skeptical and asked, "Is someone really saying that? Will Revan only ever have one arm?" The healer bowed his head and sincerely apologized. Charlie nearly went mad. He grabbed the priest by the collar and shouted, "You're a priest yet. You can't even reattach an arm. This is a type of injury we have never seen before." On another note, Julian was a bit worried and called Vincent, but he remained silent. Julian hurriedly told the other priests to leave, and he stayed behind to explain that this injury is quite unusual. "It's hard to describe. It looks like it was severed by something my divine power can't control. If we don't act quickly, even higher-ranking priests won't be able to heal it." At this moment, Zach Lee shed tears, angrily accusing, "Look at this wound alone, and even a third-level priest like him can't heal it. He must have learned many dark techniques. There must be some force helping him." As soon as he finished speaking, others began whispering and speculating. Julian finally spoke up. "Is it okay?" Vincent asked for opinions before Master Khan approved. Vincent calmly stepped forward and said the Great Sword Assembly was held with Master Khan's presence. Therefore, any actions must be approved by the authority of the Master. And the Master declared that I am the final winner. Thus, all his words were flatly rejected by the authority of the Master. This is also where many special guests are gathered. "Charlie, do you believe your understanding is greater than the Master's?" Caught off guard, he bit his lip and sweat started to pour. Without letting him explain, Vincent immediately ordered Jerome arrest him. Zarin hesitated and asked, "Is this your order?" Lord Vincent confirmed, "The father of the Revan clan." Charlie clenched his hand tightly. "What if you are a descendant of the main line? You still dare not let him finish speaking." Vincent glared and questioned, "Are you questioning the Master's authority here?" "Need I say more?" Jerome dared not resist and replied, "I will follow your order." He stepped forward, tied Zach Lee up, and forced him to kneel. Zach Lee shouted, "What are you doing? Let me go!" Then Master Adenka's cold voice echoed, "Zach Lee, do you realize you owe Vincent?" Adenka's law does not forgive the same crime twice. If Vincent hadn't done this here, you would bear your clan's punishment. We are all fathers here. I will forgive you this time, so don't complain again. Exactly paled and lowered his head. Yes, master. Master Khan then turned to praise well done Vincent. He placed his hand on his chest and bowed slightly in thanks. Julian happily smiled and asked, You look so happy, what's up? He scratched his head and replied, Nothing. I'm just embarrassed. Truly a valuable experience to be praised by the master. On the bed, Revan couldn't hold back his pain and cried out. Seeing this, Sharpie worriedly turned and called priests over to use divine power to ease the pain. At this moment, his right arm would never be saved. Revan painfully tried to say no. Julian leaned close to Vincent and whispered, Vincent, he asked worriedly, is it okay? Julian confirmed this will definitely be a beneficial opportunity for us. Seeing that he had no choice but to agree, all right, I will do as you say. Then Vincent went to the pastor. Pastor, does that right arm stone have healing powers? The pastor looked puzzled, doubting that the reward used to heal young Master Revan was indeed a magic stone. He was asking me to use that stone. Vincent smiled, guessing I would think it could work. He said firmly, I'm the one who cut off Revan's right arm. Is it okay if I handle this situation? Head of the Khan family frowned and said, all right, I'll leave it to you. Vincent stepped in front of Revan's corpse, who had mocked and ridiculed me at the arena. He hurriedly begged me, I'm sorry, I didn't know how to discipline him. I sincerely apologize, please forgive him. Vincent suddenly drew a sword from someone in the room. That person shouted, my sword. You said everything should be proven by action. He swung the sword, cutting the ropes, binding Charlie while he was still stunned. Vincent made a condition. Show the remorse of a family head. Only then will I use the magic stone to heal Revan. The corpse asked suspiciously, what do you want? Vincent's cold eyes looked at him and said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. As for the right hand, I will need the right hand of someone else. At this, the corpse was shaken. His pupils contracted, veins bulging. Vincent coldly looked at Revan on the bed, silently mocking. What a useless bastard. I know he's fully awake now. He refused to speak despite everything happening. Is that right hand really that important to you? Where has the filial piety of this generation gone? After some struggle, Sharpie took the sword in his right hand. He placed it on the table and said, all right, I will sacrifice my right hand. Although he said that the corpse was trembling completely. The sharp blade slowly lowered. Julian sighed. Looks like he really loves his child. Vincent replied, yeah, it seems strange, but it's still a father's love. Charlie gritted his teeth. I have to do this for Revan. I have to cut off my right hand. He shouted loudly, then raised the sword high, ready to cut his own hand. At that moment, Vincent coldly glanced to the side. I told you to prevent any risks. Zarin instantly swung his sword, cutting the blade that was about to slice Charlie's hand. He breathed heavily in fear, as if he still couldn't believe what had just happened. Zarin acted just in time and breathed a sigh of relief. Vincent reminded, I hope you'll use this courage better next time. Then he knelt before his father and reported, everything has been resolved, head of the family. Was he satisfied? The head of the family smiled, holding the magic stone, and said, good. Vincent cupped his hands and took the stone. Then he brought it forward and said to the pastor, quickly. The pastor obeyed. He took the stone, put it in his mouth, and began to channel divine power. Circles of light appeared. O goddess of healing, please have mercy and grant us a miracle. After the prayer, he crushed the stone. The power from the stone combined with divine energy flew to Revan's arm, connecting the wound. Charlie was very happy. Revan's arm. Julian sighed. The magic stone is precious. Vincent smirked and said, you were the one who told me to give it to him. Julian expressed some regret. I still can't help but feel sad. Vincent somewhat agreed. True, it's a rare item outside the gate. Wilson was leaning close, eavesdropping. His face was full of excitement, silently admiring. Young master is so cool, really badass. Remembering when Vincent said there would be a time you'd have to decide between opposing or swearing loyalty to me. At this moment, Wilson made his decision. He clenched his fist. Of course, absolute loyalty is way cooler. Wilson happily stood in the doorway, squinting and smiling at Vincent, calling him young master. He announced, I'll start preparing dinner soon. Vincent nodded, all right, and have him step back. Julian wondered what's wrong with him. In response, Vincent leaned back in his chair and said, isn't that what you wanted? For him to see me as his master? Julian sighed, of course not. I'm aiming for something greater. There was a knock on the door outside. Julian wondered he already brought it. Why so fast? Vincent sat upright and said, come in. The man in the cloak entered and asked, how have you been lately, young master? You vaguely said, "Are you?" He raised his hand to his chest and bowed respectfully. "Good evening, let me introduce myself. I am Doolin, a cleric of Gale." Vincent asked curiously, "Why would a cleric come here?" He stepped close to the table in front of you and replied, "I came to express my gratitude for what happened earlier." This greatly surprised Julian. A cleric came here to say thank you. He held out a magical stone and said, "Please accept this." Vincent felt a bit confused. "Why are you giving this to me?" Doolin replied, "I'm returning this magic stone to you because today you helped heal young Master Revan, so that those who suffer first can stand again." Then he smiled happily. "That's why I became a cleric." Holding the glowing stone, he continued, "However, seeing young Master Revan today, I was at a loss for words. I weighed the value of the magic stone against human life, and it felt like a mockery. You voluntarily gave up the magic stone you just won." He placed the stone in your hand and added, "Thanks to young Master Vincent, we have been able to reflect on ourselves. Please take this back." Holding the stone, you smiled, "I didn't really do anything." It's basically the cleric who realized that. Still accepting this is a reasonable way to show my respect to you. Doolin bowed in thanks, then searched for something else on him. A card with a laurel wreath in the number 2. "If you ever need help from the temple, please show them this card." Both of you looked intently at the card. Doolin explained, "Although this news hasn't spread to the public yet, I recently became a level 2 cleric." Julian was very surprised. Level 2. Is he a level 2 cleric? Vincent glanced over and asked, "Is that card really that good?" Julian explained, "Good, that card is like telling them to treat me as someone of level 2 worth." Anyway, Vincent didn't really know what it meant to be a level 2 cleric. Dorn bowed respectfully. "Thanks to you, I have learned a lot." "Thank you." Then he left. Vincent held the card, smiled, and said, "Take care." Julian jumped onto the table in front of Vincent and said, "See, we got something way better than Wilson's loyalty, didn't we?" Vincent sighed. "Yeah, that guy's really good." Julian the kid happily said, "You praising me like that makes me a bit shy." Vincent added, "I wonder if it's because you've been looked down on your whole life that you're so easy to flatter." Julian panicked. "That's right." Then he remembered his father often ate alone, but once invited a family member to have dinner with him after the great sword tournament. Vincent asked curiously who it was. The answer was the second child of Crazy's sister. She had won an overwhelming victory in a great sword tournament. You asked Julian, "Are you saying that might happen tonight?" Julian nodded, "Yes, 50-50. Hearing that Vincent stood up, "I'm not feeling well, but I guess I can't rest now." Julian eagerly said, "It's 50-50, but put your cloak on. If it's what you said, then you better be prepared. Even if it's 1% still the same." Julian awkwardly scratched his head, smiling awkward. Wilson rushed in from outside, opening the door and shouted, "Young Master!" Vincent turned around sternly. "What's all the commotion?" A bit of worry showed in Wilson's eyes as he stammered, "It's the head of the family." Before he finished, Vincent stepped past him and said, "He invited me, right? Let's go lead the way." Wilson thought silently. He predicted this too. Damn, so cool. That evening at the Adenka family mansion, Vincent arrived and walked alone down the long hallway. Suddenly, a woman with a flower in her hair approached and said, "Hurry up, Vincent. It surprised you a bit." That woman was your stepmother. She said, "I heard you just won an incredible victory at the great sword tournament, right?" You raised your hand to your chest and bowed thank you. You thought to yourself that your birth mother had died after giving birth to Vincent. The woman in front of you was indeed your stepmother. Julian spoke up. "She is Vesa Helen. Before retiring, she was such a skilled martial artist that people nicknamed her the Giant. Currently, she holds control over everything related to the Adenka family." She turned and said, "Let's go, your father is waiting for you." The master's room door slowly opened, and the two quietly stepped inside. In front of them now was Khan Adenka, the current head of the family and Vincent's father. He sat there motionless. Calling Vincent's name with that voice came an imposing gaze staring directly at him. The entire room seemed to sway. Vincent was struggling to breathe under the heavy pressure weighing on his lungs. He thought to himself that he hadn't felt like this all day. That must mean this is some kind of test for me. Surely he's testing whether my strength for the great sword tournament is real or fake. Vincent looked up and said, "I don't think father needs to deliberately put pressure on his son during a private meeting." The family head still sat there, with his hands clasped, a flow of mana surrounding his body, and said, "Why would you think that?" Vincent smiled because when Mom greeted him, she called his father Dad, not family head. The two looked at each other surprised that just from that small detail he could grasp the situation. He raised his hand to dissolve the formation. "Well done, son. You noticed that." Still maintaining the family head's demeanor, he sat there, Saint-Pierre, and said, "I called you here for two reasons. First, to congratulate you on your victory today, and second, to see how strong Charlie Adenka's concerns really are." Recalling the day of the match, he had shouted, "Look, family head, if a level 3 cleric can't heal it, how could that technique be learned through any formal method? Something about this definitely isn't right." Vincent felt a flicker of worry, but didn't know how to start speaking. Suddenly, it felt like an eye behind him was trying to see through his heart, terrifying Vincent deeply. It was none other than the eye of the stepmother next door staring straight at him. Vincent stood frozen in silence, sweat pouring down his face, a bit hesitant. Khan Adenka asked if it was possible he was a Bessa disciple. The reply seemed to be no. Didn't the boy deny that? Vincent's whole body trembled. He wondered what this horrible feeling he was sensing truly was. Julian answered, "It must be Mother's secret technique. She possesses eyes that can see through the truth." The family head asked further, "So what kind of martial art is that?" "Vincent can't even use mana yet. How could it sever the arm of a level 2 martial artist?" Vespa replied, "That sword technique resembles the recorded swordsmanship of the brave king." Hearing that, Vincent immediately asked, "The brave king you mentioned, did Mom mean Cajun Samuel?" She was right. He wields his sword in strange ways, and it's said to be able to purge any evil power. It's also rumored that his sword can suppress the great demon Davin. Vincent frowned lightly, thinking again how this fabricated history just leaves him speechless. What could Cajun and the Samuel clan possibly want to achieve by doing this? She stepped in front of him, placing both hands on his shoulders, and looked at him with eyes full of truth. Vespa asked, "So tell Mother this sword technique, like the hero of the Samian clan. How did you learn it, my son?" "I will tell you, Mother." At that moment, his whole body seemed dazed as he looked at the man before him. Vincent thought the person who called him here was his father, but apparently not. Mother was the one leading this conversation. He was being interrogated about the true origin of the martial art he was using. As he hesitated to answer, Julian suddenly appeared and stopped him. The boy said she has the ability to tell truth from lies just by looking into eyes. If someone gives a clumsy excuse, she will definitely suspect them. Standing before the pressure of the eyes of truth, Vincent wondered, what should I do now? Should I say I'm not her son, but actually an old man from 500 years ago? Julian placed his hand on Vincent's shoulder to hold him back, and the boy who wanted to test the eyes of truth hadn't left Vincent's side yet. Vespa kept urging, "Come on, quickly, tell Mother." Vincent remained frozen silent. He turned to urge Julian, who was tearing at his hair in fear that the woman in front might discover he was faking it. Vincent used his experience to advise the boy. "Julian, just one step." Vincent added, "Overcome your fear with just one step. You only need to take one step forward. The rest will come by itself. Let me take the first step so you can smile confidently and then answer." "I have received a divine command, sir." The answer surprised Vespa greatly. The atmosphere in the large room fell into a brief silence. She spoke up, saying, "You received the divine decree, but did not receive any blessings. You didn't realize that if you only received the divine decree without blessings, then unless they are villains." Vincent was silent and extremely worried. "Damn it, Julian never told me about this." Betsa began to question, "Why haven't you said anything yet? You are acting very suspicious. Do you want to go through a trial by the Holy Court? Or would you rather stand before Judge Garamian?" Vincent cleared his throat. Julian behind him finally started to speak. "According to me, both of you should answer the questioning together. If you feel suspicious, you can go verify it with the temple." Hearing the word temple, Berta tilted her head slightly and looked at him. Vincent held out the stone and continued, "If you really were a villain, wouldn't a bishop holding a level 3 magical stone have discovered it?" The stepmother questioned, "Isn't that the magical stone I gave to Doolin?" Vincent honestly said, "This is the one I was given." With the eye of truth, she realized he was not lying. Her eyes showed no reaction. Vespa, still suspicious, asked again, "Did you really learn that swordsmanship through the divine decree?" Binchin raised his hand and answered, "I learned many things from the divine decree, but not this swordsmanship. Actually, I have read records of these mysterious sword moves for a long time, but have always hesitated about whether I should learn them." This is the truth that the two of them told her. This is also the truth of those two. The truth of both identities can fool the eye of truth. Vincent continued, "I feel I have to prove something. Adenka, I want to prove that I am much stronger than those relatives." At this moment, as Dalvin, he looked at Julian, smiling. See, you did it, Vincent added, and I also want to prove it to father. The stern man in front of Khan Adenka is the head of this family. He directed his gaze toward his father sitting there because he thought his father would give a fair judgment. The temple has already approved it. Now everything depends on father's decision. He sat there stroking his chin, seeming to contemplate something. Vespa turned and saw smiling slightly, thinking he was stroking his chin. He himself did not realize it, but this was something he often did whenever he was satisfied with something. Khan crossed his arms over his chest seriously and said, and this is my decision. Min Qian can continue to practice that martial art. This declaration made him very happy, and he immediately thanked father. Julian also breathed a sigh of relief, having overcome the ordeal. Bessa added to the head of the family, surely you know that King Cajun's swordsmanship is very similar to the Grey Demon, Davin's swordsmanship, right? His face was serious and unchanged. As a leader, he was fully aware of this. Vesa added, if we say he uses the King Kajun's swordsmanship, the Samir family would make a fuss, claiming we stole it from them. But if we say it's the Great Demon's swordsmanship, they can say nothing. She still had some doubts. I understand that the decisions you make have considered those matters right. The head of the family frowned, eyes sharp, and affirmed, I have considered all necessary matters, madam. Hearing the answer from the family head, the stepmother finally breathed a sigh of relief. She turned to Vincent and said, since the family head has approved, that means he will take responsibility for all of this. So you must try your best to get stronger and not cause him any trouble. He thought to himself that was not simply a warning. She was confirming the family head's decision and informing him that she had accepted it as well. He bowed respectfully. I will surely remember this. At this moment, the family head stood up and added, Vincent, you have achieved great results in the True Sword tournament. Not only that you have confirmed your status as a direct descendant of the Adenka family, he stepped forward toward him. So I will grant you one wish. What do you want? Vincent replied, I want to become stronger. Khan stood before him. Though that's a good answer, it's something you must accomplish on your own. He looked at him with the eyes of a father and said, tell me one thing I can do for you. Julian whispered to him, do you want to enter the library? Vincent followed and asked for the permit to enter the family library. The family head wondered only martial artists above 3 stars can enter the library. You've reached level 3 already? Julian smiled, not yet. That's why I want to take this opportunity to be treated like a spoiled child. He smiled, all right. I will allow you to enter the lowest level of the library that a 3-star martial artist can enter. The family head turned to Vespa and ordered the madam to give Vincent the blood lotus. She turned around smiling, obeying the order. He looked at his son and said, take it. This is the reward for keeping your promise to me. That blood lotus is the sword father used when he was young. It's what he wielded when he began building his reputation in this world. Julian continued, it itself is the history of the Adenka family. Holding the sharp sword in his hand, Vincent marveled at what a wonderful sword it was, still so sharp despite being stored away for so long. But are you really that happy? Julian teased excitedly. The kid replied, what are you talking about? I'm not that happy. Vincent said seriously, if you're this happy with just this, then that's not good at all. He smiled because in the future we will achieve much more. Julian thought secretly, at first I was disappointed because you were not the Spirit King, but now I'm unsure if summoning the Spirit King as planned would let me achieve this much. Although you are a bit reckless and old-fashioned, I still feel I can entrust my whole body to you. Wilson stood in the yard waiting for his master to leave. Vincent stepped out of the mansion and said to Wilson, let's go. He respectfully bowed and obeyed. As he was about to leave, Vespa called from behind Vincent, talk to me for a moment. She stepped in front of him. Surely you've been putting a lot of effort into planning and training. Lately, haven't you? I'm very proud of you. Vincent smiled and thanked her. Vespa added, that's why if you become the winner at the True Sword tournament, you will be forced to enter Blood City as tradition dictates. Have you figured out how to subdue the Blood Demon yet? Vincent thought of Blood City as one of the training academies under the Adenka family's authority. Only those who pass the test at Blood City can be considered qualified martial artists to advance. That means winning the True Sword tournament and subduing the low-level Blood Demon. He hesitated and asked Julian, what should I answer? The kid said, you haven't figured it out yet. Vincent looked straight into Vespa's eyes and said, I still don't know for sure. This surprised her a bit. Oh my, I thought you had finished planning a long time ago. Vespa seemed to see through his body and asked, that strange sword technique seems to have caused you a lot of pain the few times you used it, right? Vincent didn't hide it and answered, yes, mother. Vespa said, seriously, if that's the case, listen to me. You won't be able to defeat the blood demon in just one strike. If you fight in this state, you'll die. Julian wondered why he thought that. Vincent replied coldly, have you forgotten my story? My enemy imprisoned me and distorted history. With eyes that see through lies and as someone trusted by the Lord, she could have accused us arbitrarily but didn't. Maybe she doesn't like us, but at least she's not hostile toward me, Vespa said. As soon as the words blood demon slipped out, Vincent bowed his head and interrupted. Thanking his mother's advice, I won't disappoint you, she thought silently. I'm trying to explain the characteristics of the blood demon to him, but he didn't even ask anything. Watching Vincent's back, a remarkable martial artist with no fear or hesitation, my heart is moved, Vespa smiled. Did you see that Saravana today? Your son took a big step on the martial path. The next morning, Wilson was hanging clothes and singing, looking cheerful as always today. I will support the young master with all my might. While daydreaming, a suitcase flew and hit his head, accompanied by a scolding voice behind. Support my ass. What are you scheming this time, Wilson? Holding his aching head, he turned back, complaining, hey, what did I do wrong? Siri in front of him is a maid with a huge suitcase, clearly planning to cause trouble for the young master. Hearing this, Wilson reacted fiercely. Didn't you see I was hanging clothes? The girl glanced suspiciously. Are you really doing that? He patted his chest. Because the young master has changed, so I, a direct servant of the young master, should change too. The maid widened her eyes. But how exactly has the young master changed? This question made Wilson chuckle. Inside the library, only the clan's martial artists were allowed entry. Vincent was sitting reading, surrounded by shelves filled with all kinds of books. He seemed to be searching for something, tossing books irritably. It's not here. I can't find what I need. He scratched his ear in frustration. Why is there no record of what happened 500 years ago? Julian agreed. That's right. There's nothing to be found from that time period. Like it was taken away. Even the stories that remain are just folklore about the great demon and the hero king, the kid added. I guessed it wouldn't be in the records, but not to this extent. Looks like someone deliberately erased it. Vincent lowered his head thoughtfully. Yes, history from 500 years ago, and even the sword techniques. Someone erased or changed it, Vincent thought silently. At least I'm saving myself from prejudice later. What's more important now is to improve my sword skills to defeat the blood demon. I need a training method before the hero king's level because I can't reach his level right now. Julian looked at Vincent curiously. You call Father Aslan a child and use the sword technique of the one known as the hero king. Facing each other, the kid asked Vincent suspiciously. So who exactly are you? Vincent hesitated. If I reveal I'm the great demon Davin, he'll obviously be shocked. Should I be worried? He crossed his arms and shook his head. That would be very disrespectful to Julienne, the former owner of this body. You share the same fate as me. Vincent sighed. Julienne, listen carefully and don't get too confused. The kid got excited. You must have some story, right? Vincent spoke. My name is... Just hearing this, Julienne's whole body stiffened as if shocked by electricity. The kid covered his ears and asked again. Wait, say that again. What did you just say? As before, Vincent hadn't even mentioned the name Davin when loud noises appeared in Julien's ears, making him unable to hear anything. Vincent worriedly stood up and asked, Are you okay? The kid replied, I'm fine. You don't have to say it. I already know. I don't want it anymore. While doubting this, something caught his eye and grabbed his attention. It was an ancient book with a blue cover titled First Love with the Water Wheel. Julian wondered, why would a book like this be among a bunch of mana cultivation books? Vincent picked it up to examine and replied, This is the library managed by the clan. How could a romance book get mixed in here? He smiled with satisfaction. Someone kept secret historical records in a different form. The truth about the past. Vincent skimmed the lines, blushing. It was a hot summer day and I was naked, soaking in the water wheel. Neither expected the truth to be in a book written like this. Maybe this is an alternative approach so opponents won't suspect. Vincent suddenly called Julian back, startling the kid. He pointed to the book and asked, The main character in this novel doesn't have the hero king's level, but has the trait of the power of love. It's not an ordinary novel, he continued. These traits aren't normally used to create mana flow, but their manifestations are caused by mana flow. To achieve this, one has to discard all that hero king stuff. Without the hero king's level, the freedom of mana makes all of this possible. Julian was amazed. I can't accumulate mana without the hero king's level. That person would die. Vincent closed the book, clasped his hands, and smiled. Right here, one person accumulated mana without the Hero King's level and still survived. Mana flows with distinct traits. Knowing this, we can clarify those traits too. Both satisfied, they stepped out. Julian added, learning these traits is very dangerous, even with the help of the Hero King's level. Characteristics equivalent to the wealth of a martial artist. So they won't easily teach the flow of mana to others. Vincent agreed, but we found a clue to become stronger. He smiled and looked back at Julian. Let's just try it now. Meanwhile, the kid warned, didn't you hear me say it's dangerous? As Vincent stepped out of the library, the young maid was already waiting there calling for the young master. She looked at him excitedly. Is it true that you defeated Revan and were granted the blood? He wondered who is Julian. The kid answered, she is a maid named Ciri. She had left for a while because her family had an emergency. The memories in his head recalled her. She was one of the few who still blindly loved the failure of Vincent from the past. He replied, yes, just as you said. Hearing confirmation straight from the young master's mouth, Ciri knelt down. Thank God, the girl seemed emotional, wiping tears and saying she thought after the grand tournament, the young master would be ignored even more. Vincent jokingly asked Julian, do you know how to comfort a woman? It was surprising for an old man from 500 years ago to ask a kid about this. He knelt down and put a hand on Ciri's shoulder. I'm sorry for keeping this secret from you. I've been training hard to become a master you won't be ashamed of. While everyone was still emotional and stuff, a loud voice called out from below, where have you been? A familiar figure appeared, and all three were quite surprised and wide-eyed at Revan arrival. He stood there glaring sharply at everyone and said, I have something to discuss with you, Vincent. The atmosphere in the room was somewhat heavy. Vincent and Revan sat facing each other with the maid, Ciri standing between them, nervously glancing at Revan. He hadn't made any moves and had just been sitting silently all this time. Julian wondered, I thought he wanted to say something. While Ciri broke the tension by asking, do the young masters want some sandwiches? Revan suddenly stood up. He reached behind his back and drew a huge sword with a somewhat dangerous look in his eyes. Julian watched with some worry while Vincent was still grasping the situation. Holding the large sword, Revan's face tightened. I came here to repay the Grand Sword Tournament. Vincent saw the strange action, stood up, and intended to draw the Blood Lotus sword. He thought, damn it, I didn't expect him to attack like this. Now that he knows the sword skills, the old way won't work anymore. Vincent shrank back, ready to defend, anxiously turning to Ciri, get out of here now. She put her hand on her chest worriedly, but said, I can't leave you behind. Ciri suddenly startled when she heard Revan's words. Vincent, I owe you a lot. He pressed the sword to the ground and continued, you forgave my rudeness and allowed me to use your magic stones. A coward like me tried to use my father's money to set up spies there, but my spies returned and my father became gentle again. Revan suddenly knelt down. I've gotten everything back, but I can't repay it. He dropped the sword, the hilt tilted toward Vincent. Now I'm just a coward, but I won't be like that anymore. Raven placed a hand on the ground and bowed before Vincent. This is the best I can offer you now. I swear to always be loyal to you. This was something Vincent did not expect. Ciri was extremely surprised and thought, is the young master Revan kneeling? Vincent smiled, thinking that in the end, he wasn't a hopeless case. Julian worried you'll trust him. This is Revan, he explained. He placed the sword before me, which means giving his life to another as a warrior. This kid is serious, Julian sarcastically said, another stupid warrior, but it seems like you just thought of something. The kid smiled at Vincent. I will trust Revan, but I have a very good idea. He drew a sword and said to Julian, if you agree, then I'll follow your idea. Vincent placed the blood lotus on Revan's shoulder, making him slightly startled, then added, I accept your oath. I will stand by you until the moment you betray me. Revan saw the sword and thought, I had my doubts, but this really is the blood lotus. Could it be that the clan chief has already appointed him? If so, then I won't regret swearing loyalty. He smiled, bowed, and said, thank you for accepting it. Even in her dreams, Ciri could never have imagined what was happening right before her eyes. She thought to herself, he really has changed. The moment he was called Vincent, the loser felt like a distant dream. Julian cleared his throat, looking quite satisfied. Sorry for interrupting when you just gained his loyalty. His eyes lit up. Let's try to find out the blessing traits of the noble Prince Revan. At the same time, inside the Adenka clan lord's mansion, the lord was writing something in his study. Vespa stood nearby and said, it looks like Vincent is planning to join the Blood City next year. He replied, I know how the campaign against the demon's lair went. The maid answered, I told the boy the traits of the demon blood form, but he said nothing. He looked very confident. Demon blood can only attack mana stars level 3 or higher when not in physical form. The reason the campaign became a rite of passage was to see how someone faced demons and proved they were capable as a level 3 martial artist. Vespa turned and added a few days ago, Revan appeared at Vincent Adenka's home and stayed there. Inside his body, a flow of mana twisted like a cord. Julian and Revan both watched Vincent sitting there practicing using the mana in his body. On the right, Revan stood behind guiding very good create another mana loop again. On the left, Julian worried, okay, be careful in this direction, remembering the days before they reviewed a book found in the library together. Revan picked it up and asked, you want to gain the blessing traits of the Way Prince from me using the method in this book, because you can't imagine it, right? Vincent sat on the chair, arms crossed, asking, will you help me? Vincent repeated something that stunned Revan. You already promised loyalty to me, didn't you? Back to the present, Revan looked at Vincent, wondering if he could trust Vincent with his life. If I were in that position, no, I couldn't. He smiled lightly again and said, you're making me pathetic, Vincent, but not bad. This is the first time losing has made me happy. Looking at him, Revan could only marvel as the mana flow spread throughout his body. Who would think someone in the main line could use such a crazy method? Vincent closed his eyes, focusing intensely on the mana flow within his body. Julian reminded him not to act on his own, to slow down a bit. Vincent replied, are you always going to lecture me? You were the one who proposed using Revan to get this. Julian the kid worried, why can't I preach to you when you keep doing whatever you want? You're just tumbling on the cliffside. Raven also started giving Vincent advice. You're too impulsive. You're already fast enough. No need to rush with your past. Vincent was firm. This is how I live, Julian. I can't get anything without risking my life. At that moment, you can only try to boldly move forward. Julian held his head and worried Vincent, at this rate, you'll die. But the mana flow didn't stop, and the two ends were closer than ever, ready to connect. Just a little more, and the flow will complete. If I can connect like this, 2 mana streams from both sides are about to join. With Vincent's intense focus, Revan saw and rushed forward to stop him. Don't. Vincent was still too early, but the 2 ends of the mana flow connected with sparks of mana flying out. He laughed joyfully. I did it. His whole body was drenched in sweat, but he didn't flinch. The mana flow instantly broke, and boom, a blast blew the roof off, almost blowing everything in Vincent's room away. Inside the room, everything collapsed and crumbled. Revan staggered as thick smoke rose. He coughed once, his body trembling as he fell backward, unaware of Vincent's condition. From the Khan family study, someone asked, there's still about half a year before the next offering opens, right? The respectful attendant replied, yes, that's correct. He added, Vincent has defeated a 2-star martial artist. Probably for him, that's just his normal strength. The stepmother was slightly worried, and she hoped that was true. Revan had now stood up and anxiously asked Vincent if he was okay. Vincent raised his arm, waving it to reply, I'm fine. Revan was a little angry. You pushed yourself too hard, even I would need half a year. You're extremely fast, but at least 2 months are necessary. Almost simultaneously, Kanadenka gave a figure of 1 month. He ordered Vexa to relay the message to Vincent, defeat the blood demon within 1 month. At the same time, Vincent was dazed by an explosion. Julian took the opportunity to scold, what did I tell you? You looked as shabby with a book on your head, thinking you'd be reincarnated again at the end, huh? In the hallway, 6 footsteps slowly approached. It was Rissa. She was thinking about the message from the family head to young Master Vincent that he must complete the transfer ritual within 1 month. She worried, you don't have much time, young master. You must hurry. Throwing open the door of the room, Riola shouted, young master, are you here? The scene before her left her utterly shocked, frozen for 5 seconds. Inside the room was messy. Vincent was being tended to by a maid for his wounds, and Robin sat there with a bandage on his head. Riza asked with suspicion, what's going on here? She seemed quite angry, asking young master, do you want to explain this? Seeing the demeanor of the 7th-rank Grand Minister, Riola Revan jested. While Vincent said, don't worry, Grand Minister, I'm just meditating, bit. The honest maid interrupted, don't lie. Siri said with a slight anger, I don't know about mana, but people don't end up like this after meditating. Are you trying to make me worry, Vincent? With a shocked face apologizing, the Grand Minister noticed the young master's attitude toward others was completely different from before. Riza bowed her head. I won't ask anymore, since you said not to worry about meditation, but you must hurry because the family head has sent you a message. You have to complete the transfer ritual within 1 month. The 2 young men sat there stunned upon hearing the announcement. Julian said to Vincent, as far as I know, Father has never set a time limit before. He smiled, got it. So that means he has expectations. The Grand Minister stepped toward the door, turning back to say, I will personally be your guardian until the end of next month. I will do my best until then. Riza thought silently, young master, you have to defeat him. Raven looked at him troubled. Vincent needs at least 2 months to receive the blessing of the Waylord, but 1 month seems too short. Hearing that, Vincent replied, just 1 month, I have to hurry. But Siri cut him off. The maid held the young master's hand and said, you mustn't push yourself too hard anymore, okay? He shrugged it off, turning to smile and said, all right, I promise. But the hand-holding just now made Vincent realize a difference in Siri's body. That was mana. He saw that the maid before him was not simple at all. Siri had a large amount of mana in her body. Siri eagerly asked, is that okay, young Master Vincent, awkwardly? All right, I promise. Now go. I have some things to discuss with Revan. So the two women left the room and the door slammed shut. Inside, Revan said to Vincent, 1 month is not enough. We have to find another way. Julian also asked worriedly, what should we do now? Vincent said nothing and raised his hand to circulate the mana in his body. He asked Revan, is this the movement face of mana? Both Julian and Revan were extremely shocked, eyes wide shouting, you've completed the mana flow. Vincent sat there smiling. This time it's done. I can now circulate mana at will. With this, I can accomplish what Father said. Julian exclaimed, truly talented. Everything he does is so fast. Revan also couldn't believe his speed. Vincent smiled confidently. We don't need to wait a month, just exceeding Father's expectations. 2 weeks later, near Vincent's mansion in the forest, he and Raven were standing there discussing something. Julian was also flying around him. Vincent raised both hands forward. Now I will demonstrate the traits. Raven nodded lightly in agreement, but looked tense. Julian was also fully focused, carefully observing the situation. Vincent was a bit worried. It might explode like last time. Can you step back, Revan? But he was very determined. I must witness your success firsthand. Julian smiled. This guy is too loyal. Vincent said, I'm starting now. Begin channeling the mana. Before long, the mana flow was completed in front of them. 2 halves of a mana sphere appeared rotating like an hourglass. They formed circles of various sizes. While Vincent continued, Julian sensed something unusual. A blurry figure with a wild beard slowly appeared behind them, a dwarf with a large hammer and a distinctive 2-horned helmet. Massive body with bright, shining eyes accompanied by rumbling sounds. Julian trembled slightly. Is he the Dwarf King? Hello, only someone like me can see him. The Dwarf King raised his hammer with the sound of wind whistling. He was about to strike down at the spot where the 3 were standing. Julian fearfully covered his head while Vincent remained calm. However, what caught the blow was a square protective barrier surrounding them, also blurring the figure. Golden aura made Vincent's hair fly upward. He kept his eyes tightly shut, fully concentrating. Vincent slowly opened his eyes. Light shone in front of him. The mana circles were now enclosed by a large ring, like a shield and protection. Revan stood nearby, holding hands, joyfully speaking the blessing from the Dwarf King. The first trait is defense, reinforcing the body. The body will become tougher. Revan smiled brighter than ever. Thinking silently, he really did it. It didn't even take a month before he received the Dwarf King's blessing. The image of the Dwarf King in the forest gradually faded. Julian also smiled and said to Vincent, let's go home. He happily looked at his hands with the golden aura radiating around him. With this, I can fight 3rd-rank swordsmen. I have laid the foundation to control the blood demon. He turned to thank Riola. It's all thanks to you. He smiled, eyes closed. Only kill the blood demon first, then thank me. Vincent added, but I have to ask you for one more favor. Making Revan a bit curious about what it was. 2 days later, a red carriage was prepared for the journey. Vincent stood in front of the mansion holding the blood bond. He smiled and loudly said, it's time to go to the blood demon's lair. He approached the carriage. Sorry for the sudden request, High Steward. I decided to exceed my father's expectations. Riola thought silently about not using the full-time limit and leaving 2 weeks early. Will he be all right, she asked. I have protected all participants in this transfer ritual 3 times. The master, your brothers, and other Adenka family members never failed the challenge. Riola thought to herself, Savannah's son can't be the first to fail. Riola said to him, please don't risk it with that reckless courage, Vincent. He just smiled confidently and said, don't worry, High Steward. You'll be surprised. The carriage rolled through the forest toward the Blood Demon challenge. Inside the carriage, Vincent and Riola sat facing each other. The atmosphere was somewhat silent. He said to Julian, escorting a mission like this is really useless. The kid replied, the Blood Demon will leave some items behind. She's just here to observe you. Vincent wondered, I really don't understand why I have to do this just to prove myself. Julian sighed, a lot has changed after 500 years. Ray also suddenly spoke up, breaking the silence. Have you heard anything about the blood demon yet, sir? She added, to subdue the blood demon, you need to have at least 3 mana stars or higher. Do you know that from what I see, young master hasn't even reached 3 stars yet? Julian suddenly remembered that Vincent hadn't asked about the blood demon before. He replied to Ryla, don't worry, you don't think Aslan arranged all of this, do you? The blood demon will be the first monster I conquer. Vincent added to the Grand Steward, that's not the kind of monster I need to get to know. Rayla looked a bit worried. Even with your swordsmanship, you shouldn't let your guard down. She frowned slightly at him. Don't think I'm joking. Vincent laughed and asked the Grand Steward, why are you trying so hard to help me? Rayla replied, because I'm both the defender and supervisor of this challenge. At that moment, Vincent mentioned the word corruption and looked straight at the woman in front of him, questioning, are you really planning to hide that? It was clear that Ryola had been struggling financially. The carriage still rolled on steadily. Vincent said, that's exactly why I can't stop thinking about this. He added, maybe you think I'm too weak to do this intentionally, right? Hearing what his young master just said made Raelsa think deeply and unsure what to say. Vincent crossed his arms and smiled. If you don't want to say it, that's fine too. You didn't ask about my training, so let's just call it fair. The carriage stopped. The horse neighed loudly. Vincent asked, are we here? Ryola turned to Raelsa respectfully. Yes. He stepped down from the carriage looking ahead. Julian stretched after a long journey. Vincent looked at the ruins in front of him and asked, is this the blood demon's lair? Ryola answered, there's no exact name for this place, but people often call it the ancient temple. Looking at this pile, who would believe this is a temple? She explained further, this is a memorial site for the first clan chief of Aslan, after defeating one of the remnants of the great demon Davin. Vincent pondered Aslan and the blood demon too. It can't be just a coincidence. Ryola tightly gripped her sword and slowly drew it. She raised the sword to chest level. Mana exuded, covering a layer around her body. She was ready. Then she pointed the sword straight up, creating a huge pillar of light, shooting skyward accompanied by booming sounds and a gradually appearing barrier membrane. At that moment, the entire challenge area where the 3 stood was completely enclosed by a spherical mana barrier. Julian recognized this as a mana barrier. Vincent smiled. This is a barrier that only allows exactly one monster to pass through. Over there behind the rock, a figure with a deadly red eye and a tattered hood silently watched them. Standing before Vincent now was the blood demon, a huge monster holding a massive scythe. It stepped out and let out a demonic roar. Vincent confidently gripped the blood scythe and said to Raelsa in a low voice, open your eyes and watch. He turned slightly, smiled, and said, report exactly what you see. This is how I proved Gachoyan the Adenka family. No sooner had he finished speaking than the blood demon lunged forward, raising its scythe to strike at him. A purple mana layer wrapped around the scythe, along with the blood demon's deadly gaze preparing to slash down. Julian reminded Vincent, dodge then counterattack. But he disagreed. Keeping distance is better if you're facing an opponent with a bigger weapon, but for us it's different. Thinking so, he pushed off the ground and charged forward. Better to get close, he thought, then pressed the blood scythe in his hand close to the blood demon. This surprised the blood demon a bit. It didn't expect him to dare charge at it like this. Instead of slashing it, had to pull the scythe back in front of it to block Vincent's stab. Vincent's eyes glowed red. He smiled. Don't think I'll let you swing that scythe. Continuously striking, Vincent pushed the blood demon back, forcing it into a defensive stance. Ray also thought to herself, close combat will be very advantageous when facing that big heavy weapon. That's always obvious. She stood outside observing, but with his first real battle at 54 years old, how many people could perform that perfectly? Looking at Vincent's posture and smile, Raelsa thought, he looks like he's beaten Viet Quien many times before. He kept attacking alongside the blood chain. The attributes of the Dwarf King are indeed amazing, and I can even move like this with this body. A lightning slash was descending, but after all that was the foundation for finding techniques in my swordsmanship. He sheathed his sword and kicked Huiet Kui's scythe, causing it some surprise. That move helped him jump high into the air and retreat backward. Vincent landed lightly and slid back a bit. At this point, he was quite far from Huiet Kui, so this was the right moment to increase the distance. Looking at Huiet Kui now, it seemed very excited. However, it became quite tense after so many defensive moves. Its next attack would definitely be very wide. That would create an opening for Vincent to close in. Huiet Kui charged, swinging the scythe with one hand and reaching forward with the other. Vincent quickly took a defensive stance with the blood chain and used mana to attack. He thought silently, Facing an enemy with many openings obviously makes it very easy to find victory. A swirl of mana surrounded the blood chain. Vincent was extremely determined. We must maximize our attributes combined with sword techniques. At this moment, with sharp eyes and intense focus combining sword skills and physical enhancement, Vincent struck a full-power slash at Huiet Kui, making it grimace, and dropped the scythe in his hand. Between the two halves of Huiet Kui appeared a sword slash, split in two. His eyes were sharp and full of spirit. The entire body of Huiet Kui was shrinking into a red sphere after absorbing all of the blood orb. It dropped with a thud on the ground before Vincent and Realsa. He turned around laughing loudly. "Did you see that great minister?" But she didn't react, still standing, silently observing as if everything was just beginning. Realsa worried, did he really not know why Huiet Kui cannot be defeated by a one-hit kill? From inside the blood orb, streams of red aura were rapidly pouring out. The blood aura gradually gathered into one eye. It turned out Huiet Kui had 2 lives and was preparing to slash Vincent from behind. The scythe was right by his neck, but his expression remained quite calm, and he was even smiling. Realsa worriedly raised her sword and shouted, "Young master!" Vincent quickly noticed something unusual, glanced over, and almost immediately ducked to dodge Huiet Kui's close-range strike. Vincent still smiled at it. Even this is the same as 500 years ago. But almost immediately the scythe slashed vertically toward his head and chest, surprising him a bit. Fortunately, with his agility, Vincent kicked aside just in time. He was quite surprised by Huiet Kui's current speed. It seemed after his second rebirth, it had become much faster. Vincent observed again and noticed its appearance had changed as well. Have these bastards evolved over the last 500 years? Realsa frowned, a blood demon going crazy after resurrection. Along with that, its speed and strength increased along with its large body. It used its powerful hand with claws to grab Vincent. As usual, he jumped up to dodge. Rocks around burst up with bright red electric sparks. Vincent landed. At this point, he had started to realize the danger in front of him. He had been pushed back toward the wall behind him. The retreat path was blocked. Huiet Kui roared and charged. It struck hard at him. Vincent was cornered against the wall. The situation was very dangerous. He was thankful he hadn't been hit yet. But Julian realized something, repeatedly calling his name Kid. Shout at the temple. Vincent looked over and saw strong winds being sucked in through the large gap left by Huiet Kui's last slash. Julian was worried. This is bad. We have to change the plan. But Vincent stopped him. No, not yet. We have to catch it off guard. Seeing the blood demon in front of him, Vincent said to Julian, "It's thinking the same thing. It's trying to corner us against the wall to deliver a decisive strike. And when it's fully ready, we'll carry out the plan." The blood demon growled and stared deathly at him, preparing to strike. Raisa stood outside, silently observing every detail. She clenched her hands tightly, thinking that she was the overseer of the transfer ritual, and interfering would mean the master had failed. She was a bit worried. "Please don't let me end your son's future, Miss Saravana." She recalled a girl with long blue hair dressed somewhat messily reaching out with a smile and saying, "Staying here is such a waste of your potential." The one kneeling below was none other than Rayola. The blue-haired girl added, "We are on the path of adventure to become martial artists. Do you want to join us?" In the past, Rayola came from a declining family, and she survived by stealing across national borders. Looking back, facing such a terrifying monster shocked me deeply, but she invited me to join. I thought she was crazy. The blue-haired girl smiled brightly. "Oh, right, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Saravana, nice to meet you." So this was Vincent's mother. When she was young, she turned around to ask Khan and Vespa. They also agreed. Yes, those two were the current head of the family and his stepmother. Khan, with his familiar blood sword, said he didn't care much. Vespa laughed. "You're really willful. Even if I didn't agree, you'd still do it anyway, right?" At that time, Rayola thought maybe she had lost her mind after the head injury in battle. Maybe she was too tired of that life of plundering, or perhaps she was influenced by Saravana's boldness. Rayola reached out and tightly held Saravana's hand. In the end, I joined them on the adventure path to become legends of Adenka. In the forest, huge and gruesome bare feet were approaching. A giant orc wielding a large club prepared to attack. Rayola stood holding a sword against it. She smiled confidently, raised her sword, and apologized to it. But a familiar figure with long blue hair swiftly appeared. Because Rayola wasn't the main character, it was Saravana. She jumped into the air behind the orc, ready to unleash a deadly strike to scare it. Saravana landed brilliantly, looked at her, and said, "Rayola, you're the best." The orc couldn't avoid death from a sharp slash that decapitated it. In Riola's memory, Saravana was an incredibly strong and beautiful girl. She had a power that made others smile because of her carefree innocence and the positive energy she radiated. At that hopeless point in Riola's life, she was a ray of light. Riola also gradually became more positive, but Miss Saravana was the most wonderful of all. That night outside the mansion, heavy rain poured. Inside, Saravana lay with her eyes closed and someone was pulling a white cloth over her face. Khan bowed his head in sorrow, the servants mourned, and Riola held the newborn master in her arms. The baby cried loudly. The last blood Saravana had was in Riola's hands. She also sadly looked at the baby in her arms. He inherited his mother's blue hair. The child was none other than Vincent, the son of the wonderful mother Saravana. Tears fell, but she told herself this was not the time to grieve. This is the child Miss Saravana left behind. I will protect this child from a harsh life as a direct descendant of Adenka until he becomes an admirable martial artist. Time passed and Vincent grew older. In the mansion hallway, there were loud noises. Vintron's younger sister had just slapped him and then looked at him smiling. Don't pretend we're friends. You lost big brother. He just lay there holding his face. The girl added, You're useless. Why don't you try speaking politely to me instead? At that time, Vintron just endured, bowed his head, and said yes. Riola's younger sister witnessed everything but didn't intervene. The younger sister laughed loudly. You actually did it just because I said so. She bowed her head for 14 years straight. I have countless times wondered what I could expect from this defeated Vincent and whether I should leave Adenka. At that moment, Wilson was standing outside the door, happily praising the young master. As cool when Riola stepped forward with deadly intent. You acted foolishly in a creative way. Wilson was scared and shrank back. He trembled, trying to explain, It's not like that great steward. I was only acting as a servant. Young Master Vincent has already been recognized by the head of the family. This made Riola a bit surprised. She began to change her thoughts about the young master, and now finally she started to see hope. But Riola thought silently. Don't give up, young Master Vincent. On the other side, the blood demon continued its attack with a strong arm swinging a mana scythe straight at him, a powerful strike accompanied by a loud roar. Vincent was still standing, frozen there without any sign of reaction. Riola was a bit worried, hoping her young master wouldn't stop here. The moment had come. Vincent finally spoke and gave an order. Right then, Revan's shadow flashed past the great steward at an extremely fast speed, surprising her a bit, but Riola hadn't recognized him yet. She wondered if the person who just ran by could be. A sound, the clash of two hard objects, created a dazzling flash of light, along with crackling electric sparks. Revan stood there, using the long sword in his hand to block the powerful attack from the blood demon. Only then did Riola realize the person who had just run past her was Revan Adenka. Revan had timely stood up to block the deadly attack from the blood demon to protect Vincent. Its face was full of rage, surrounded by lightning and the sound of howling wind. Riola was very surprised to see Revan stand up to help the young master fight the blood demon. He smiled confidently. I'm counting on you, Revan. And Revan grinned. Destroy it before I fall. Vincent raised his hand and began to meditate, focusing intensely on the flow of mana within his body. Riola was horrified. Oh my God, is he crazy? Why meditate right now? Looking at Vincent, if Revan were pushed down and the young master only took a minor hit, he would die. The blood demon in front of them was still fiercely charging toward the person who had just killed one of its kind, but was stopped by Revan saying, Where are you looking? I'm the one challenging you. He gripped the long sword tightly and tried to brace himself. Revan knocked the blood demon's scythe backward, causing it to blanch slightly, but it immediately roared and changed its target. This time it aimed straight at Revan and struck down. Perhaps it thought to defeat him first before coming for Vincent. He smiled. If you don't fall to Vincent, then you are my prey. Then he cast Steelman, making his body tough, but the blood demon also slashed down with a strike that sounded like a massive explosion. Though sweating a bit, Revan taunted, Weaker than I thought, huh? Is that all you've got? Before he finished, the blood demon performed a combo strike. Revan started to worry because his sword couldn't receive the Steelman effect, so it wasn't tough enough and showed signs of cracking. Seeing the blood demon swinging right before him, Revan realized it was aiming for his sword. This strike shattered the long sword into pieces. Revan grimaced and cursed, Damn it! The huge shadow of the blood demon with its scythe in hand was preparing to strike down. Revan thought, without a sword in hand, how can I protect Vincent? So he grabbed the blade part with both hands to block the blow, but his strength was limited and his whole body trembled as he struggled to resist. Although his body had the Steelman effect, it was still very difficult, feeling like he might not be able to hold on much longer. Revan shouted, "Vincent!" In response came a familiar voice. "Well done, Revan." Along with that was a jagged flow of mana, a streak of energy, flashing right under Revan's armpit, heading straight for the blood demon. It was the sword energy of Blood Lotus. With Vincent's sword technique, the blood demon was split into two pieces. Once again, the blood orb appeared, and this time it probably could not be revived anymore. The blood orb cracked with cracking sounds, its color fading gradually, pieces falling off with a bang. The orb shattered before Vincent and Revan, and the blood demon was defeated. You stood beside him, laughing loudly. "Thanks, Revan." He laughed loudly. "Man, I suddenly feel sorry for the blood demon." Ryla's distant voice caught your attention. "Is that your plan, young master?" Well, she stepped forward and said, "Congratulations, but I'm not sure the head of the family will be okay with you withdrawing. Didn't you say you wanted to exceed your father's expectations?" Vincent bowed his head and smiled. "You're too hasty. You created this mana screen to let only one monster pass at a time." At this moment, a faint red glow appeared on the screen. A large arm emerged. Since the first one died, this is probably the next blood demon. It will set up a barrier in advance, continuing to target Vincent. Holding the magic stone in his hand, he raised it and said, "Now I will prove myself." Then Vincent brought the stone to his mouth, bit it and swallowed. His whole body burst with an extreme mana flow, covering him in a black-purple hue. The second blood demon charged forward. Vincent thought to himself, "Even after upgrading my body, I can only use sword skills twice. The reason I have to meditate is to calculate the effects of the magic stone." He stood still on the ground, facing its attack, calculating his body's endurance, and raising his sword in front, ready to finish the task. Continuing with swordsmanship skills, he unleashed a straight mana sword beam from bottom to top, piercing through the blood demon. Vincent noticed the blood demon's weakness revealed as it was healing its wounds. The blood orb appeared, emitting blood energy to revive. The blood demon was gradually regenerating with its familiar grotesque face. Against such a flawed opponent, I can execute sword techniques much more easily. While the blood demon hadn't fully formed yet, it immediately took a horizontal slash across its mouth. The second sword skill cut sharply. The blood orb shattered in two quickly, and the blood demon died. Ryla witnessed the entire process in a short time, with the blood orb being sliced in half, unable to hide her amazement. She closed her eyes thoughtfully. "It seems I don't have to worry anymore." Looking at the boy in front of her, she was proud. "Excellent, young Master Vincent. But you don't look very well." Using such a powerful ultimate technique caused Vincent to cough up blood. Julian worried, "What kind of sword technique is this, that my body is like this after only a few uses?" Vincent propped his sword down and answered with difficulty, "It's the meditation property of the magic stone. Without one of those, you couldn't do it." Julian advised, "Lie down. If you've used it and pass out, Ryola will take care of you." Vincent replied, "Just like the Grand Sword Tournament, Julian. The real winner is the one who can endure until the very end." He tried to stand firm despite exhaustion. "I will never fall." Ryola then came behind him, smiling as she called, "Young Master." The barrier around them slowly disappeared. It seemed the trial had been passed. But no, a large circle appeared above the barrier, causing it to shatter. Revan sat there looking up, extremely shocked. Julianne was also stunned, not knowing what was happening. Ryola, sword in hand, face tense. This is a summoning circle, but such a thing has never appeared in the transfer ritual. Stones around were gathering around a purple stone. A glowing eye appeared, staring straight at them. Ryola's face grew serious, ready for the battle ahead. Everyone was an ancient guardian. A giant stone serpent roared at them. Ryola reasoned, "Such a large guardian has never been discovered until now. That likely means it was created along with the temple." She pointed her sword at it clearly. "I serve the Adenka family." Ryola Beladian declared her mission with the main line of the Adenka family and showed respect. The serpent ignored her words. It opened its mouth and lunged to attack them. Ryola worried, "It's useless. It's no longer clear-minded because it's too old." She shouted, "Young Master Revan, please take young Master Vincent and retreat." Raven hurriedly helped Vincent up to leave. Meanwhile, Julianne was extremely concerned. The two young masters turned to walk away, leaving the Grand Steward with the giant stone serpent in front. Ryola began to draw her sword. Belodian Sword Technique Part 7, A Terrifying Slash. Behind the two young masters was a towering beam of light and massive destruction. Rocks flew chaotically. Revan and Julian heard the noise and turned around in shock. He shouted loudly to the Grand Marshal, At that moment, only the stone snake's head slammed onto the ground, and Raw Elsa was nowhere to be seen. The ground trembled slightly. The snake guard was frozen with an icy jaw spreading from its mouth. Then in an instant, its entire body was frozen and curled up like a slide on the newly formed ice wall. Cracks appeared from inside. A powerful slash with the snowflake ring. Raw Elsa appeared from inside the snake and attacked. Revan was extremely surprised and admired what he had just witnessed. Looking at the Grand Marshal, Revan marveled that this was the rank of a 7th-level Starlight. While everyone was still enjoying the moment, Vincent, using the last bit of his breath, whispered, "Comrade." He looked toward where Yahello was standing and said, "Over there," then tried to use his remaining strength to launch a slash straight behind Yahello. The sword move swept just above her head and cut into the rock behind her. Everyone was puzzled and confused by his recent action. The Grand Marshal was no exception. He slashed into thin air, but whilst to say something to me. At this moment, Raw Elsa carefully looked out. Something, it was a guard, and it seemed this was its true form, the shape of a bee with a striking red stone abdomen. Raw Elsa was surprised. When did it escape? The young masters are in danger. The guard was flying toward Revan at high speed. It buzzed as it flew, looking extremely threatening. Immediately, the Grand Marshal knelt and used the blessing trait of the Wandering Galaxy. Raw Elsa seemed to accelerate toward the two young masters with her Snow Steph ultimate skill. In the blink of an eye, she reached the spot, faced the small guard, and slid her sword past Revan, cutting the guard in half, narrowly averting danger. Both of them then collapsed to the ground. Ryla stood nearby and asked Han, "Are you two okay?" The Grand Marshal was a bit surprised. "I couldn't see the guard's true form, but the young master did and warned me." Vincent, exhausted and leaning on his hand, spoke to Ryla. A small wooden box appeared right where the shattered snake had been. Vincent thought that was what the guard had been protecting. The danger had passed and the trial was over. The forest became quiet. Rayla slowly opened the box and looked inside. Vincent, sitting from afar, asked, "What's inside?" Holding up something like a fang, she replied, "This is a dragon bone. It seems to be an ancient artifact left by the first owner, Aslan." Julian looked quite pleased. Dragon bone is an extremely rare magical material and a priceless treasure. Vincent smiled. It seemed this was the reason Arsenal created the transfer ritual. Riansa knelt and respectfully presented the dragon bone to the young master. "Please accept it." She bowed and added, "Among all the Adenka who came here, you were the one who found it, so it belongs entirely to you." Vincent hesitated slightly, sitting still without reacting. Rayla added, "That's my matter," meaning it was his responsibility to the family if reprimanded. At this moment, he stood up, drew the Blood Lotus sword, and said, "Then let's do it this way." Saying that, he slashed once, dividing the dragon bone into two parts. Holding one piece in his hand, he smiled and said, "Now we'll be accomplices." Vincent handed a piece of dragon bone to Rayla. "We couldn't have gotten it without you, so take it." She smiled and bowed her head in thanks. Somewhere else, a sword was planted in the ground, surrounded by barren trees stripped of their leaves. This was the ancestral tomb area of the Adenka family, called the Sword Grave. Lord Khan is standing there admiring the ancestral swords. Rayla bows his head and reports, "My lord, I have returned after young Master Vincent completed the transfer ritual." He wonders, should this be reported to the church? Rayla replies, "What I saw was far more astonishing, so I came to find you." He looks serious. I'm very eager to hear it. The Grand Marshal began telling, "Do you remember Devon Adenka, the hostile one? He had been influenced by the young master and even risked his life to block the attack of the writing demon. Moreover, young Master Vincent successfully subdued him." The family head closed his eyes, seeming disappointed. "So, doesn't that mean the boy couldn't do it alone and needed trickery? But then he defeated the blood demon alone." Rayla's words made Khan suddenly wake up. The Grand Steward added, "He also found the dragon bone left by the first Master Aslan. This is a half that the young master shared with me." The master asked, how come Vincent could do it himself? Rayla honestly replied, "Yes, the young master cut it off himself with a sword." The master ordered, "There's still this thing." Rayla was a little confused. He asked her to smash that piece of dragon bone, which was the master's command. Being told to break it immediately made her worried and puzzled, but she obeyed. Rayla struck the dragon bone with all her strength. Both the master and the Grand Steward focused on the changes in the dragon bone. Rayla raised her sword and bowed to Ancestor Adenka. "Please forgive this rudeness." Then she used all her strength with the East Wind Collapse technique to strike down. The result was the dragon bone completely froze, but when the outer ice cracked, the inner dragon bone was almost untouched. She was extremely surprised. How is that possible? I tried my best. The master turned around and said, you must be a high-level blacksmith to break the dragon bone. Khan's gaze sharpened. He silently called his father in his mind and looked at the tomb below, thinking it might soon be his son's turn. He ordered Riola, it seems Vincent has a special power. Take care of him, my son. Then he put his hand in his pocket and stood proudly before his grandfather's tomb. Wilson started crying, tears streaming down his cheeks. Calling the young master, Siri immediately turned around to complain. Wilson, young master needs to rest after that battle. Silence. Suddenly he ran over and asked the young master, so do I really have to go to Blood City? Siri poured more tea for the young master and said, of course. Are you really going to let him go alone that day? Wilson worriedly said, but Siri said, blood. The maid shrugged and said, out in the wild, is Wilson afraid of monsters? Or what? Vincent looked at his two servants arguing and felt a bit exasperated, then turned to say, Julian, haven't you seen it? It turned out he was focusing on Siri. The mana flow from Siri's body was quite clear. But Julian was quite surprised by that mana. I don't feel it even though I've lived with Siri much longer than you. If it were true, I should know. Vincent confirmed, I saw a similar mana flow 500 years ago. He turned to ask the maid, Siri, what is your family name? Hearing the young master's question, she was a bit embarrassed. I come from the Heisley family, the 7th generation. This confirmed Vincent's suspicion. Just as expected, Siri has a magical body. Julian was amazed. Heisley in a magical body. This is the first time I've heard of it. Vincent explained, the Heisley family studies bodies and mana, and they are among the people who discovered the Holy Bone. Members of the Heisley family have a trait called the magical body, similar to the Holy Bone. It allows them to absorb mana and use it skillfully. Julian wondered, so that means... Vincent nodded. If a body is full of mana, it can block the Holy Bone that's slowly dying. He stood up and asked Siri, do you know anything about the Heisley family, like their ancestors? The girl looked a bit sad. Wilson seemed unhappy. Young master, do you know why Siri is here? The maid sadly recounted, my grandmother passed away a long time ago. She was the only Heisley I knew. Vincent sat down and sighed. Sorry, Siri. She waved her hand. It's okay. You've been through more, from the Sword Council to the transfer ritual. Julian pondered, why would a family with such skills become extinct? Vincent speculated, maybe something similar happened to the Samuel family. Julian agreed, makes sense if they tried to hide the existence of the Holy Bone. Vincent thought the Heisley family was killed to cover up the trail. Siri suddenly remembered something. Wait, there's someone else. She just died recently. But the young master's mother, Duchess Saravana, was also a Heisley. Hearing this, Julian was a bit shocked. The boy insisted, I've never heard of this. Vincent repeated the same. Siri added, maybe because no one talks about Duchess Saravana anymore, since the master always feels sad when he hears anyone mention her name. The scene cut to the master's mansion, in the room where Kana Denka was standing deep in thought, his eyes distant, unclear what he was thinking at that moment. Back in Vincent's room, Siri continued, the Duchess hires everyone without any discrimination, even those from extinct families. Wilson added, why we say here thanks to Duchess Saravana, especially the Great Steward. She was once at the bottom of society until the Duchess personally brought her into the Adenka family. Julian smiled. Mom really is an amazing person. Vincent frowned. That's right, which also means Riola is taking care of us thanks to Mom. Outside, there was a knock on the door, and the Great Steward stood outside asking, young master, are you here? She has come to inform that young master Revan is leaving. He is standing there with his longsword on his back, arms crossed, looking toward the mansion. Vincent arrived and asked, you're leaving? Revan nodded. I have defeated the blood demon, and I can't stay here forever. Vincent said, I still have one more thing I need your help with. Revan cheerfully replied, all right, just say it. Vincent said, I want you to investigate more about the Heisley family history from 500 years ago. It seems someone is trying to cover it up. He smiled, like the stuff about essential oils and the watermill. Vincent nodded, something like that. Revan answered, okay, leave it to me. Then they shook hands and Vincent laughed. See you later, Revan. He happily replied, I'll become even stronger. I don't want to embarrass you. Then he left, not forgetting to wave goodbye to everyone. Vincent spoke to Ryelsa, the Great Steward. I've been told about my mother. It seems your kindness to me is to repay a debt of gratitude. She nodded in response. Yes, sir. He turned to face her and said, I have a favor to ask as Vincent Adenka, not just as Saravana Adenka's son. This made Raelsa curious. What is it, sir? His face was very serious now. Train me until I reach the Blood City. Vincent added, I ask this not because I am my mother's son, but as a martial artist and great steward, wondering if Duchess Saravana's loyalty to you can now be transferred to young Master Vincent. Remembering the Duchess's radiant expression, I knew I would never hear her answer. Sorry for my weak decision. She smiled with sharp eyes. I won't go easy on you. Vincent was equally pleased. You'd want that more than anyone else. I'm counting on you, Raelsa. The next day at Vincent's mansion, on a rather beautiful day, the two stood facing each other in the training yard. Raela began, You can learn the attribute without a demonstration, but you need to have a mana attribute circle, all right? Vincent nodded, okay. She took a sword from the weapon rack and continued, all right, but since you asked me as a martial artist, I won't just tell you everything. Vincent looked at the sword puzzled. Aren't you going to use the sword from the transfer ritual? Raela closed her eyes. The black VS incense sword, you'll meet it when the time comes. She began using mana. You still have 5 months until you go to the Blood City. And if you manage to injure me even once, I'll show you that attribute. Her eyes lit up and she smiled. Try to slash me with your strange swordsmanship. Suddenly, Vincent became worried. Hold on, don't you see, Revan? A permanent wound would be pretty bad. Before finishing, Raelsa closed in with the tip of her sword right in front of Vincent. Looks like young Master Revan the sword tip just inches from your eye with this attribute. Vincent drew his sword and slashed toward Raela, but she simply jumped up to dodge. Raela said, I know quite well the power of that sword stroke, which is why I'm planning not to give you a chance to whiz it. Vincent worried she just stared straight into my eyes, so dangerous. Raela landed lightly. I heard you are friends with the 4 alchemists on our side. We will ask for their help when needed. Vincent began to feel the ruthlessness from the great steward. She smiled, I told you I won't go easy on you. A week later, on a calm, moonlit night, the moon shining on the training yard, the two were still clashing with no sign of resting. Vincent's determination was clear on his face, though he struggled a bit, while Raela maintained a graceful, superior demeanor. Suddenly, she appeared behind him. You had prepared for a long time, and boom, the entire arena shattered from Raela's powerful strike. She said, if you use 2 more attack techniques, you will be overwhelmed. Let's stop here. Vincent lay there trying to react. That was pretty harsh. She sheathed the sword. You'll get better soon. I will call Syrian Wizard. Looking at the torn sword in Raela's hand, I think this sword is about to break again. I don't know how many swords I've had to replace these past few days. I have to tell the blacksmith about this. At the forge, a short but muscular man wielding a large hammer was hammering iron. Raelsa stood outside the door complaining, it seems your master craftsman title is the only thing you've lost since we last met. She added, it would be a tragedy if you forge only trash swords for the Adenka family. Hansen seemed hurt in his pride as a blacksmith upon hearing this. He propped his hand, removed his glasses, and glanced toward the door. Hansen took off his glasses, looked outside, and asked, Who's there, Servana's stalker? What are you doing causing trouble at my place in the middle of the night? Raela handed over a bag and said, Take a look at this. She poured out a pile of broken and chipped sword blades. The Grand Steward said, These are the blades I've used in the past week. I only use them for one-on-one duels. I can't give you such fragile blades. Hansen observed carefully and noticed something odd. He asked if she had fought a monster with sharp teeth. The blacksmith gave several scenarios. What if it was a 9-star or higher martial artist, or a mage with more than 7 magic circles? But none of those were the case. Raela shook his head. Do you want me dead or what? Your sword collided with a great sword. The Grand Steward's answer remained the same. No way, that can't be. She added, I don't know if you consider that a great sword, but I fought one-on-one with young Master Vincent's blood chain. Hearing the name blacksmith, Hansen was astonished. What? Vincent, that ugly 7th young master. Why does he have the blood chain? And so shortly after a meeting took place in front of the mansion, Raela brought the blacksmith over. Vincent stepped out, wondering, it's this late and still trouble? What's going on, Grand Steward? She respectfully said, sorry to invite you out so late. He insisted on waiting to see the blood chain. Hansen had changed into a neat outfit, arms crossed, saying, Why wouldn't I be allowed to see it? I'm the one who made it. Vincent was surprised. You made the blood chain? Julian woke up too. This dwarf is blacksmith Hansen. He kept a confident smile saying, I'm a dwarf, and if I want I can call Khan himself. Julian told Vincent he was a famous blacksmith, a longtime friend of his father, and a former master connected to the Adenka family. Vincent wondered, former, does that mean he's no longer a master? About 10 decades ago, he stopped making great swords and focused on high-quality inventions. He was despised by other forges for his greed for wealth, which caused him to lose his honor and position in Adenka. Vincent smiled, that's amazing. This made Julian wonder why so many people could protect themselves thanks to this man. He prioritized others over his own honor. Vincent put his hand on his chest, bowed respectfully. I am the 7th young master of Adenka. Vincent, honored to meet you, Master Hansen. He looked at him with a slight smirk. Master, huh? Then Hansen laughed loudly. Look at this guy, he really knows how to joke. All right then, sorry for coming so late to see the young master. Satisfied now, Vintran kept that same attitude. I'm not mocking you. You've chosen the right path. Vintran's words made Hansen pause and his smile faded. And this is the moment to remember the past when he was young and his beard wasn't as long as it is now. Someone once told him the path he chose was the right one. Hansen, that person, was none other than the Lord Khan Adenka. When the two were sitting in a pub, Khan said that his wish would be mocked by many people. He raised his beer mug, smiled at Hansen, and continued, but I believe your decision is the right one. Back to the present, his gaze was focused intently on the young man in front of him. Seeing Vincent's demeanor now reminded him faintly of Khan. Seems like the legacy runs in the family. Hansen said, I thought you were the ugly Vincent, but that must have been a false rumor. Vincent just smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. He said to him, show me the blood lotus. I need to check its condition. Vincent didn't hesitate to hand over the sword. Hansen drew it out and examined it for a long time. The sword was still sharp and shiny. Returning the sword, Hansen asked, did you use this to defeat the blood demon and duel Sarvana's stalker? Vincent nodded. His confirmation surprised even an experienced man like Hansen. Seeing Vincent's confident look, he thought, how come the blade isn't damaged at all? As if he didn't use the blade but cut with his own strength instead. Hansen seriously asked, what kind of sword technique do you use? I have to see it myself. He frowned slightly while looking at Vincent. Why hesitate? Are you really planning to take Blood Lotus around, but then say you're too tired today to get out of this? Julian interrupted. Vincent, you can't. You've already used both sword techniques today. I know that, but we don't meet a master every day. If I miss this chance... Lost in thought, Siri suddenly appeared behind him and called out dangerously, Lord Hansen, startling him. The maid, shivering from the cold, raised her voice. Why are you still making a fuss at bedtime, Hansen? Does that sound like a stutterer, Siri? Vincent saw this and asked Riola, do they know each other? She answered that Hansen had donated to children living in poverty, and Siri was one of those children. Basically like a father and daughter. Siri didn't stop questioning and reproaching Hansen. The maid turned around and pouted. Whatever. You'll be mad. How would you feel if someone came and messed with your work? Hansen hurriedly softened. All right. Can I come tomorrow? Vincent stepped forward, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, tomorrow I'll come to the forge with Siri. Hansen was delighted, so he left, but didn't forget to remind him to bring Siri along. Promise me. Julian sighed. The old man and his daughter looked at the girl in front of Vincent. He thought he knew where Siri's warm heart came from. Then the next morning at Hansen's forge, Vincent arrived as promised with mana flowing around him and his sword. He swung once, creating a purple number 10 shape straight ahead. Hansen and Siri stood nearby, witnessing the power of this sword technique. He thought to himself, this technique is strange. It feels like the techniques of the Valor King and the Great Demon recorded in legends. Hansen smiled. Not bad. You can see why they entrusted Blood Lotus to him. Vincent asked, do you think that's enough? Hansen winked. All right, you've piqued my interest quite a bit. Almost enough that I want to make you a sword. Vincent was amazed. A sword for me. He scratched his head. But it's missing one thing. Vincent quickly asked, what is it? Hansen sighed. I've had the idea of making a sword for a long time, but it needs a rare material for the blade. Vincent offered, I'll buy it for you. He looked at Vincent. No, it's so precious that no matter how much money you have, you won't be able to buy it. It's the Horn of Mattern. Isn't that referring to Dragonbone? Vincent and Julian both widened their eyes when they heard that. Then they looked at each other. Truly a strange coincidence, as if preordained. Then he brought out the Dragonbone fragment, half of the horn, in front of Hansen. He asked, can you forge a sword with this? Seeing what was in front of him, the blacksmith couldn't believe his eyes. He shouted in astonishment. Mattern's horn. Vincent raised his hand to the family crest. I think only my father and Riola know about this. Hansen looked at him. Fate must have arranged for us to meet. All right, I will make the sword for you. Vincent picked up the blood lotus and asked, I wonder if you could add the horn to the blood lotus instead of making a completely new sword. Hansen asked in surprise, why shouldn't you just make a new sword? Vincent extended the sword in his hand. The blade symbolizes the beginning of my father's career, and the blood lotus itself is already excellent. I quite like it. Hansen took the sword with a smile. You always know the right thing to say. All right then, come back in 3 weeks, and I'll add the horn to the blood lotus. 3 weeks later, Vincent and Siri returned to the blacksmith shop as promised. There was a burst of flames. Siri asked curiously, young master, what's going on? In front of them, the blacksmith shop was on fire and the flames flared up near Vincent's hair anxiously. The blacksmith shop was truly ablaze. The fire almost engulfed the entire place and its heat radiated brightly over the area. Siri looked worried at the flames. What about Lord Hansen? Vincent reassured her. Calm down, Siri, he thought to himself. Seeing Siri so shocked meant something even more serious had happened inside the blacksmith shop. Vincent firmly said, we have to rescue Master Hansen. Julian asked curiously, what are you doing? Don't tell me you're planning to rush into that fire. Looking at the rising flames, Vincent said to the boy, my sword can cut through anything. I'll cut through the door and the fire, then run inside quickly. Saying that, he immediately channeled mana preparing to strike. Julian worriedly said, you're being too reckless. There's not much time left. Vincent swung a powerful strike at the blacksmith shop's door. The zigzagging flow of mana moved from outside toward the door. Vincent's figure followed. Leading the way was his familiar cross-shaped sword technique. Finally, he got inside. Julian pointed to the right. He said Master Hansen was slumped there motionless. Flames surrounded him. Vincent approached and called out loudly. Please calm down, Hansen, Julian sadly said beside him. We arrived too late. He's already completely unconscious. While Vincent was unsure what to do, something caught Julian's attention.